Hey everybody, welcome to the webinar. We're going to be talking about reversing Hashimoto's beyond nutrition. I'm Dr. Izabella Wentz, and I'm really excited to have you on with me. We're going to get into a whole bunch of really great information so that I hope that you have a pen and paper with you. If you're here, please let me know that you're here. I'd love to say hello. Hello, Rhonda. Nice, good evening. Catherine, Sherry, Olive, Barb, Ursula, Vera, Melody, Sandra, Ellen, Jenna, Sally, Claudia, Claudina, Marielle, Genevieve, Nancy. Hi, everybody. Hope you had a nice Labor Day weekend. My husband and I did a lot of relaxing. We caught up a little bit on Netflix, so that was nice. And we had my brother and his wife over. Just had a really nice, relaxing weekend and cooked up a whole bunch of food. Hopefully you had a relaxing weekend as well. Let me know where you're coming from. So I'm in Boulder, Colorado right now. It's really nice here. Actually, today was the first day I got to wear long sleeves, so that was really exciting. Let's see, we have Carolyn, Christy, Rich, Melissa, Jane, Kara, Pamela from New York, Jessica, my neighbor from Denver, Colorado. We have Carolyn, Anna, Barb, Glenna, Susan, Patricia. Wow, so nice to see everybody on here. Antoinette, Christine, Chris from Hong Kong, Brenda, Cheryl, Ursula, Victoria, my phone's going off. Let's see here. Lori, hello, Lori. Hello, we have Charlene from Chicago. Nice to have a fellow girlfriend from Chicago. Oh, we have Zofia from Poland. Hi, Zosia. Cześć. I think in Poland it's probably late at night. I'm gonna have to figure out one of these times that works for everybody. Copenhagen's in the house. Nice to see people from all over the world. We have Canada. We have Jerusha and Francine from both joining us from Canada, and Julie from Canada. Longan Theron from Sydney, Australia. Monique from Belgium. Oh, Patricia from Midwestern University. So that's wonderful. Nice to have somebody from Midwestern University, the same university I went to for pharmacy school. Nice to be in good company. Hello, Melissa. JC Cressy from Mexico City. Mariana from New Jersey. Evelyn from Brazil. Wow. Karen, Ermela, really glad to have you guys here. And it sounds like a lot of ladies' name. I think somebody mentioned that. We're in good company tonight. We're going to go through, and I'm going to be going through a webinar with you guys, so giving you some kind of tips and feedback on nutrition. And then after that, we're going to take some time for Q&A. So if you have some questions as they come up throughout the webinar, feel free to put them in the chat box. And I'm going to try to get through as many as I humanly can without staying up until 3 a.m. because I know we've got a lot of people joining us tonight, and that's really exciting. And hopefully the webinar will answer a lot of your questions about nutrition. And if not, we're also going to have some time to do Q&A. So excited to have you here. Let's see, Nanette, Jennifer, Maria, Bev from Illinois, Sue from New York, Barbara from Arizona, another Barbara from New Mexico, hello, Susan from San Francisco. Okay, Scotland, 1 a.m., awake and looking forward to this. And just so you guys know, if you start dozing off, this is going to be recorded. So we could also send you a replay of it tomorrow. You should be getting an email about it once we have it properly edited and downloaded, because sometimes the video takes a little while to download for us. But love that you're here. Thanks for joining us. I know in the United States, it's actually a holiday day, first day back to school for a lot of kids. So I'm really excited that you're here and joining me. And Mars wants to know, is it true 4-hour window before and after taking thyroid meds is necessary? I'm on Nature-Throid. So it's true for some things. Basically, if you take thyroid medications, generally they're best to be taken first thing in the morning. And that's going to be on an empty stomach. And you want to, on an empty stomach basically means 3 hours before you ate something and then 1 hour after. The only exception would be magnesium and calcium and iron supplements can actually compete with thyroid hormones for absorption. So you don't want to take them together. So what I generally recommend is if you need to take Magnesium, which I think a lot of people from Hashimoto's benefit from magnesium significantly, especially if you have any kind of menstrual pains or cramps or constipation or insomnia or even anxiety and headaches. You can really benefit from magnesium, and that can be taken at bedtime. I also recommend taking, calcium and iron at least 4 hours after. Generally, it's good to take those with something like dinner or perhaps lunch, as long as it's been 4 hours after your thyroid meds. Thanks for asking. Let's see. Cressy wants to know nightshades and Hashimoto's. So we see that a percentage of people is going to be nightshade sensitive, and I'm actually going to get through that into the webinar to share what percentages of people are sensitive and react to different types of foods. And for some people, they absolutely need to get off of nightshades and they feel significantly better. They can get into remission. Other people, nightshades might not make a difference. So of course, everything I talk about is going to be individualized to your particular root causes, to your particular body. And hopefully this information is a starting point for you. I have, statistics based on what works for a lot of people with Hashimoto's, and you might be like the average person with Hashimoto's, you might be completely different. So hopefully this information will be helpful though. Teresa, love from San Francisco. Hello, hello. Susan said, glad there's going to be a replay. Differences with Hashimoto's and menopause concurrently. So interestingly, menopause can exacerbate Hashimoto's. The many things that you do can be helpful. And I would also talk about doing bioidentical hormones. Let's see here. Is fermented soy a problem? It can be. If you are sensitive to soy, and same with dairy protein, you're going to be sensitive to even the good fermented kind. Can you have Hashimoto's if you had Graves' disease and have had a total thyroidectomy? So Hashimoto's is really an autoimmune condition, and you can still have the autoimmune process happening if you have had Graves' disease and have had a total thyroidectomy. Mm-hmm. And I have seen Hashimoto's after radioactive iodine when people have thyroid antibodies to their thyroid gland, but not necessarily after total thyroidectomy. That said, everything that we recommend from a nutritional standpoint and everything that I recommend through my books and courses is going to be relevant to you if you've already had radioactive iodine. Let's see here. We're going to get through some of these questions because I want to get us started. Let's get started through the webinar. I think a lot of you will be able to get your questions answered as we go through the webinar. So I'm going to have my team queue up the slides if we can.
All right, I'm so excited that you're here. I'm Dr. Izabella Wentz, and today we're going to be talking about reversing Hashimoto's, nutrition, and beyond. We're going to be covering quite a bit of stuff today, and so to make the best use of your time, I highly suggest that you get out a notebook and a pen so you could start taking some notes throughout this presentation. And so today we're going to be covering what's Hashimoto's, the most powerful and helpful thyroid diet templates, how to tailor your diet to your needs, common Hashimoto's food myths, the benefits and limitations of diet, so what can diet do and what can diet not do, root causes beyond nutrition and even beyond the gut, when to move on with your current interventions, or I should say from your current interventions. So if you've been doing something for a while and you've hit a plateau, I'm going to help you decide when you need to move on from that. I'm going to share some insights from supporting thousands of people with Hashimoto's, and I'm also going to share information about my Hashimoto's self-management program. This is something brand new that I'm really excited to share with you. So if you're here, there's a chance you may know a little bit about me and some of the things that I've created in the last few years, as well as the work I do in the world. If not, I'm Dr. Izabella Wentz. I am a PharmD, so I am a doctor of pharmacy. And the reason why I do what I do and specialize in thyroid disease and Hashimoto's and helping people with Hashimoto's recover their health is because I have a very personal journey with Hashimoto's that I'll share a little bit more about later in this presentation. You may have heard of Hashimoto's thyroiditis, Lifestyle Interventions for Finding and Treating the Root Cause. This is a book that I wrote in 2013 as a result of my own health journey with Hashimoto's that is meant to be really a patient guide to show people how to recover their own health and find their own root causes. That book did become a New York Times bestseller. I'm very, very proud of that. Just really means that it's getting out into the world and that it's doing the work that it's supposed to do in helping people. We've got over 1,000 reviews of it nowadays with lots of success stories of people who've been able to take back their health and feel their best and feel like themselves again, which makes me so happy. I am the co-founder of the Hashimoto's Institute, which is a practitioner training to train doctors and other kinds of healthcare professionals how to properly care for people with Hashimoto's. I'm the host and director of the Thyroid Secret documentary series. So this was a really big documentary meant to raise a lot of awareness about all of the different things we can do to recover our health from thyroid disease, as well as provide some validation for people that may be going through their journey and didn't really quite know what symptoms they were having and how these symptoms could be related to their thyroid, to autoimmunity, and didn't really know that there could be anything that they could do about it. I'm the author of the New York Times bestselling guide, Hashimoto's Protocol. This came out in 2017. It also became a New York Times bestselling guide focusing on a 90-day plan on how to reverse your thyroid symptoms and get your life back. And I'm also the creator of the Hashimoto's Self-Management Program, a first ever program dedicated to teaching people with Hashimoto's on how to properly care for themselves. So usually these kinds of training programs are available for healthcare practitioners for very, very high cost. And a lot of us are needing to be dependent on healthcare practitioners for our own care, where we know that really we hold the power, and as empowered patients, we have the ability to really change our lives. So I'm going to share a little bit more about the self-management program throughout this presentation, and I'm excited that you're here. I want to share a little bit about the why of why I do what I do. And I guess I just have to say a picture says 1,000 words. So the picture on the left is me before I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. To the average person, I looked healthy and fine and happy, but looking at this picture of myself, I could tell you that I was very pale, I was very sluggish, I was cold all the time. So that picture is taken in Los Angeles in the spring, and I have not one, not two, but 3 shirts on in that picture. So I have a long sleeve shirt, I have a sweater on top, and then another sweater on top of that sweater. So as you may have guessed, I was cold intolerant. I also had anxiety, panic attacks, chronic fatigue. I used to sleep for 12 hours a night just to feel remotely human. I would wake up, go to work, do my job, be there for 8 hours, come home from work, sit on my couch, watch a little TV, eat something, and then pass out. I was so, so tired. I was exhausted to the point where I really couldn't follow my life's purpose. I couldn't follow my life's dreams, my goals. I had to stop socializing with friends and really just withdrew from my life quite a bit. I experienced hair loss. I experienced carpal tunnel syndrome in both of my arms. So I had this office job, wonderful job that I loved, where I had to spend a lot of time on a computer, and I had to get arm braces, and I had to get dictation software, and I had to stop doing yoga, which was one of my favorite hobbies because of the painful carpal tunnel in both arms. I had acid reflux that kept me awake most nights, so I would wake up at the middle of the night coughing and choking. I would have palpitations. I would have panic attacks to the point where my newlywed husband would go out for a jog, and I'd be worried that he was gonna, get hit by a car or have a heart attack while running, or, worse off, run off with another woman. And really, I just was melting away from myself. So year after year and month after month, I just kept having more and more symptoms. So had irritable bowel syndrome, where I had to run out of meetings. The bathroom was my second office. I had this horrible social anxiety. I had this feeling of being withdrawn from the world and not really wanting to make friends and not even wanting to keep up with friends. And I also started to put on some weight. So my parents always joke that I'm built like a greyhound, that I'm very, very petite and very thin. But at the same time, as you could see on the picture on the left, I started to put on some weight, and I'm a very short person, so this was at 15 extra pounds, yet it was very heavy on my small frame. And we tend to, my family and I, we don't necessarily get heavy everywhere, but we tend to carry a lot of weight in our stomachs and in our bellies, and we kind of get this spider look about us. And I was always bloated. I always had stomach aches, and I just really had a hard time with showing up in the world and being who I wanted to be in the world. So fast forward to the future, and the picture on the right is me. So this is me recently after I got my health back and recovered from Hashimoto's. And I think you can tell the difference between these two pictures, right? And so the picture on the right, I look better, right? And I'm more vibrant. I don't have the bags under my eyes. I'm not as pale. I'm in greater shape. I'm actually dressed appropriately for the weather, which you may not be able to tell. My hair came back. I had a really hard time with my hair kind of turning orange and falling out in the picture to the right. Whereas now, I really feel healthy and happy and full of energy most days of my life. I'm no longer anxious. I no longer have these embarrassing panic attacks. I maintain my weight. I can build muscle, which is really, really exciting. And, really, I just feel like I'm able to be who I want to be in the world and live the life that I want to live. And I really credit this to being able to take back my health. I know what it feels like to have Hashimoto's. So some people may struggle with fatigue. Some people may struggle with hair loss. Other people may struggle with anxiety, panic attacks, depression. I've even seen people misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder or psychotic disorder or some other kinds of mental health issues. Some people really, really struggle with their weight. So they may not be able to lose weight. They may be putting on extra weight. Others may actually be losing weight, and they may start looking too thin and gauntly, which is, of course, none of our intention is to look like we're too thin or too heavy. We want to make sure that we look healthy and balanced. We have a lot of problems with cold intolerance and poor temperature regulation. So we may not be able to survive hot days or cold days because our thyroid gland runs our metabolism and runs our body's temperature and thermostat. And so when that is off, we may be very uncomfortable in a lot of situations. Fertility issues are a very common devastating effect of having a thyroid condition. And fortunately, many women don't realize this until they've had multiple miscarriages or even had children that were born with a disability as a result of impaired thyroid function throughout the pregnancy. We also see that women may struggle with abnormal periods, with hormonal swings. Same thing goes for men. Men may struggle with their libido. They may struggle with growing a beard. They may struggle with producing male hormones. So female hormones, male hormones, all of this can be affected. And then there's also this feeling of brain fog and apathy and kind of like not fully being present in your day-to-day life. And to me, this is one of the scariest symptoms that many of us face, where we used to be sharp, we used to be smart, we used to be on top of things. And all of a sudden, we're walking into rooms and forgetting why, or we're forgetting simple words like cat and dog. At least that was my story. I know that Hashimoto's can make you feel like you're alone and you're losing yourself. Many of the symptoms can feel confusing, others downright devastating. Sometimes, the list of symptoms can sound more clinical than relatable. So I asked some of my Facebook community of root cause rebels on how Hashimoto's made them feel in their own words. Here's what some of them said. Having Hashimoto's is like living a lie. Putting on your public face for a few hours here and there after you've spent the entire day feeling like you're wearing a weighted blanket, hoping no one catches you sleeping till 10 a.m. and napping at 2 p.m. and unable to remember anything on your to-do list. You're embarrassed of yourself, and it's spirit-crushing. Another person said, I feel trapped inside, alone in a dark cave with my dreams, but no gas or energy to carry my dreams to the world. Another person said, I feel like I'm sitting on the sidelines of life, watching everyone else enjoy their journey, wondering if I'll ever have my zest for life back. Another person said, to be at the mercy of an invisible illness, no control over my mood, no understandable explanation to my family on why I'm crying in the laundry room for no reason. And another person yet said, confusing, exasperating, numbing, exhausting. It's so incredibly hard on those who have it, as it is hard on those who love us. It's hard to explain the feelings, the desperation, the weight gain, and the lack of intimacy to those who have not experienced it firsthand. It's just hard. So we have a chat option, and I want to know, can you share how does Hashimoto's make you feel? So what are some of the symptoms that you struggled with, and how do you put into words what this condition has meant to you and what this condition has done to your life and how it's affected your life? As you're reflecting on your health journey, I really want to share something with you. I really want you to know that you can get your health back and you can absolutely get your life back. So here's a few pictures of me after I have been able to recover my health, and I want to share with you, I can go out and exercise now. I can go out and do yoga. I can ski. I'm not sensitive to most foods anymore. I can enjoy time with friends. I can enjoy time with my husbands and family, and it's a wonderful thing to feel like you're truly alive again, and you can absolutely get there. And I really want to share with you that the answer lies within you. So you have the power to take back your health, to take back your life, and to really be in charge and to make this happen for yourself. And truly, healing happens within. And this is one thing that I really hope that I can teach you, is how to take charge of your own health and how to activate your inner healer. So Hashimoto's is an autoimmune condition where the immune system starts recognizing the thyroid gland as a foreign invader and begins to attack the thyroid gland. This eventually results in hypothyroidism, and hypothyroidism in itself is associated with a whole host of symptoms. Now, autoimmune disease, in the process of having the thyroid gland attacked and perhaps some of the rest of the body attacked, is also going to be associated with numerous symptoms. Conventional medicine only focuses on restoring thyroid hormone levels if we're already severely deficient. And many people with Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism will be given Synthroid or levothyroxine and told that that's all that they need to do and just go on with their merry lives. But people continue to have numerous symptoms. They continue to struggle, and worst of all, the condition can keep progressing and the person's symptoms can get worse even when they're taking thyroid medications. And the symptoms can actually lead to other types of autoimmune conditions. This is why it's important to focus on the root causes of thyroid disease and autoimmune disease. Focusing on the root causes and not just masking the symptoms is the key to recovering your health. And some of the root causes that we're going to see in thyroid disease are going to be nutrient depletions. So deficiencies in certain nutrients like selenium, zinc, iron, vitamin D, these can all contribute to the development of thyroid disease. Food sensitivities, especially to gluten, dairy, and soy, can contribute to thyroid disease. Having an impaired stress response or a history of traumatic loss or any kind of childhood trauma or a current stressful situation can contribute to thyroid disease. Various toxins in our environment, so amalgam fillings, mercury, BPA, fluoride in our water supplies, all of these can potentially suppress thyroid function, damage the thyroid gland, and induce autoimmunity in our body. Intestinal permeability or leaky gut. This is present in every person with an autoimmune condition when the gut doesn't properly develop and the gut doesn't properly function. This leads to the immune system not properly developing and functioning and potentially causing an autoimmune response against a part of our body. Last but not least, chronic infections are oftentimes also going to be associated with bringing on thyroid disease as well as exacerbating thyroid disease. So infections like the Epstein-Barr virus that causes mono, H. pylori, blastocystis hominis, there's a whole host of different types of infections that can trigger Hashimoto's and thyroid disease. Now, I'm sharing all of this because Here's the thing, when we address the root causes, we not just feel better, but we can also improve the objective markers of our thyroid disease. What this means is that we can look at the numbers and the numbers will improve. So not only do we feel better, not only do we feel good and we have energy and our hair comes back and we start losing some of that weight, but we can also see that our need for medication may reduce in some cases, that our thyroid antibodies can reduce in some cases, meaning that the attack on the thyroid gland isn't going to be as aggressive. And we can also prevent the progression of the condition. So in normal cases, when you have Hashimoto's, basically your immune system is going to keep attacking your thyroid gland and you're going to need higher doses of medication, every year, every few years, depending on the person and depending on how aggressive the attack is, until your thyroid gland is completely destroyed. And in many cases, this can continue. So once the thyroid gland is destroyed, the immune system will attack another part of your body. And so we'll see people who think they're doing everything they can, taking thyroid hormones, and they end up with having multiple autoimmune conditions. They might end up with rheumatoid arthritis, or they may end up with Sjogren's or lupus, because nobody told them that there were underlying root causes and imbalances in their body that were leading to the immune system starting to attack the thyroid gland. And if we didn't address these root causes, that we would have a continuous progression of the autoimmune disease. So I have another question for you to reflect on, and you can write this down in your notebook or you can put it in the chat box. What are some of the root causes you think may be a factor in your Hashimoto's and thyroid journey? Now, when I was on my health journey, I felt like there was no information anywhere on how I could recover my health. It was like, well, there's Synthroid you can take, and that's kind of all you can do. There's nothing else you can really do for your thyroid condition. And since 2009, I am very, very excited that now, being in 2017, we have a lot of information out there. And part of the movement is something that I'm very proud to have been a part of, to create more resources and to create more information and create more awareness about the different things that can be contributing to Hashimoto's. I think this is a very, very exciting time, having the access to the internet, having access to patient forums. We can share our experiences and we could talk about what's working for us. At the same time, I know that this has actually created a situation of overwhelm, because you may feel like, I don't really know what my root cause is, and this person got better going gluten-free. Why am I not getting better gluten-free? This person said that doing colonics was really helpful for them and that helped them recover their health. I tried this, but why isn't it working for me? And another person got better on the vegan diet, but I actually got worse on the vegan diet. And somebody said to try iodine, but iodine actually made me worse. And it's kind of all this information where we get it from so many different directions. And a lot of times it's people sharing their stories, which I'm very, very grateful for, because stories of health recovery can be very, very inspiring, right? So we all want to see these stories where somebody was sick and they were able to recover their health. The challenge is that we're all going to be unique. So I call people with Hashimoto's snowflakes, because all of us are going to be different. We're going to be unique, and we're going to have different kinds of root causes. We're going to have different things that we're going to respond to. And so really what my hope for you is that you learn how to properly listen to the messages that your body is sending, because something that worked for your friend may not necessarily work for you. And the key is to dial in to what your body is telling you. When I first recovered my health and got myself well from Hashimoto's, I set out to help the whole entire world do it. I left my job as a public health pharmacist, and I just went out there and I thought to myself, I really need to change how Hashimoto's is treated. This has become my personal life mission. This has become my full-time, more than full-time job. And really, this is something I'm truly, truly passionate about. And through this process of working with people, over 1,000 people now with Hashimoto's over the last few years, I was able to come up with a process. So I'm going to back up a little bit here. When I first started working with people with Hashimoto's, I initially would try some of the things that worked well for me. But every now and then, I'd have a success story, but I'd also have some setbacks where people would get worse. and people would feel like I'm not getting any better. And this was very, very frustrating for both me and the person going through this, because they weren't getting better as quickly as we wanted them to get better. And so, and sometimes, we were looking at different kind of triggers and infections and toxins, and we were trying to get rid of these toxins and infections. But when we were doing it too soon, the person actually couldn't properly clear the infection or the toxin, and they didn't really feel better. And so what kept me up at night for a little while was, quite some time actually, was how do I develop a streamlined process that we can put just about every person into, so that we can individualize the process to them and yet set them up for success. And I came across some research suggesting that people with thyroid disease and Hashimoto's oftentimes have difficulty in processing toxins. And of course, infections are present and intestinal permeability is present. But at the same time, when you address these things head on and directly, you don't always have the best outcomes. And so I really wanted to know, what could we do to get a person feeling better fast? And I really began to think about, why is it that some people get sick, and why is it that others stay well? And why do some people have a hard time recovering? And why do some people recover their health right away, right? Given the right kind of tools and resources. And this really led me down the path of looking at vulnerabilities and triggers. And so whenever we look at a person who is struggling to get well, or a person who is getting sick all the time, and compare them to a person who doesn't seem to pick up illnesses and who tends to recover quickly given the right kind of circumstances, there are underlying factors that the people who continue to struggle with their health continue to share. So even when they're exposed to the same infections, gut permeability, toxins in the environment, people with underlying vulnerabilities are going to be more susceptible to them. And so, for example, a person who is not well nourished and who's not well rested can go into a room full of people, or into an airplane, or shake hands with a bunch of people, right? They're going to be more likely to pick up a virus, to pick up a cold or a flu in that environment, versus a person who is well rested, relaxed, and well nourished. Even if that same person, even if they shake every single person's hand that the person who got ill shook hands with. And this really goes back to our body's underlying defenses and our body's resilience. So making sure that you're properly nourished and fed is going to be key to being resilient. Making sure that you have plenty of nutrients on board means that you're going to be getting rid of toxins better, and that toxins are not going to be able to bind your body as well. Nutrients can also help us activate the different mechanisms in our bodies that fight infections. Same goes for stress. Anytime we are under a significant amount of stress, this is actually going to make us weaker. So we're more likely to get gut infections, for example. Whenever we're under a lot of stress, this is going to weaken our secretory IgA, making us more susceptible to having these infections on board. And so I really thought about, what is a model that we can do for just about every person with Hashimoto's out there that can help them feel significantly better in a short amount of time. And so rather than focusing on the individual triggers and the individual infections and toxins, or trying to figure out how to get the gut to finally seal and heal, like right now, I really began to focus on strengthening the body with my clients. And this was going to be the first part of the process. So the first 4 to 6 weeks, we're actually focusing on optimizing diet and macronutrients. So this means we're looking at what kind of nutrition you need in your life. So we're looking at the big things. So are you getting enough protein? Are you getting enough fat? Are you managing your carbohydrates correctly? We're looking at micronutrients as well. So do you have all of these nutrients on board that are going to help you make all of these chemical processes within the body happen, that are going to make neurotransmitters for you so that you feel good, that are going to help you detoxify toxins so that you don't feel bad? A big part of this is also going to be optimizing detox pathways. So making sure that every toxin that is coming into your body doesn't just stay there and stick around and make you sick, that we have a proper way to let the toxins get out. without causing a lot of harm. And we also focused on resetting the stress response. So how do we get a person to be more resilient so that they're not as likely to be sick and that they're able to fight the illness much, much quicker and much more effectively? The second part of the process really focused on identifying and addressing the triggers. So we looked at chronic infections, gut healing, and removing toxins. And I have to tell you, when we really start off with the fundamentals of really getting the person's vulnerabilities addressed and all of these weaknesses patched up, we are actually going to have a much easier time in clearing the infections, in healing the gut, as well as getting rid of toxins. Now, when I first started working with people with Hashimoto's, it was kind of a trial and error. And sometimes it would take months. I mean, like 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, sometimes even longer before we saw significant symptom improvements. And, of course, people got discouraged. And I was discouraged too. I thought, why isn't this working? We're trying to get rid of this infection, and we got rid of this one infection, but now they just got a second infection. And so now we have to treat this infection. And what's going on here, right? And what's going on here? And with the new program, so with my new program that I piloted with people, and I'll tell you guys a little bit of that later, we actually have been able to see dramatic changes in how people feel in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and 12 weeks. So I want to share the story of Cheryl. She actually did the full program. This was one of my clients that was one of the early guinea pigs of doing my self-management program. So to give you a bit of a background story, I used to work with a lot of people one-on-one, but once I piloted my program and protocols of focusing on strengthening the body and eliminating triggers, I wanted to figure out if there was a way that I can take myself out of the equation. So at the time, I had a waiting list of about 500, 600 people that wanted to work with me. And, really to get a person back to where they needed to be with their health, they needed at least 6 to 10 sessions with me. However, I found that I was saying the same stuff kind of in every session. After a while, it was like, okay, we need to focus on strengthening your body. And a lot of the same strategies would apply to most people on how to properly strengthen the body. And I also, got to the point where I was overwhelmed. I had a lot of people on my waiting list. I wanted to help every single person, but I just didn't have enough hours in my day. I could have, to really address their health needs in a timely manner. I hated having this waiting list because I thought, oh my goodness, like, I don't want to be part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution. I don't want to have people be dependent on healthcare professionals or people in the know to get their health back. I just want people to be able to do it on their own as, to the best of their capabilities, to really strengthen their bodies and to really be knowledgeable and educated about how they can be in charge of their own health. Because, let's face it, if you're working with a practitioner and they give you something and you heal, you're going to be dependent on that person because you're going to have to come back. And whenever you have another problem again, they're going to give you the magic pill. And maybe you get better, maybe you don't get better. But if you really truly understand how to take care of your body and how to communicate with your body, what your body is trying to tell you with all these symptoms, you can actually have lifelong health. And we're going to have trials and tribulations in life where we're going to be more stressed out. We may get an infection. We may need antibiotics. And really part of true healing is going to be focusing on knowing how to properly take care of yourself in those times. And once you learn these things, you really can't unlearn them. You really understand how your body operates and how to properly care for it. So back to Cheryl. When I first developed the Hashimoto's self-management course, this was a 12-module course, and people were supposed to go through the course, and everybody that got the course out of my first group of people that were on my waiting list also was able to get a consultation with me. I didn't want to release this course into the world if it wasn't going to truly help people because, that's really not what I'm about. My primary focus, my primary goal and passion and calling in life is to help people recover their health. And so I set up these consultations with everybody just to make sure that they were on the right path and to make sure that the program was doing what it was meant to be doing, right? Because I wasn't talking to the person one-on-one. I was giving them direction via videos and via webinars and information. And so Cheryl kept making the appointment with me and then kept postponing it. And I have to admit, I was a little bit perturbed by this because every time I work with somebody one-on-one, I have them send in all of their labs. I have them fill out a comprehensive intake form. And I take a couple of hours, 2, sometimes 4, sometimes 6 hours to go through their case in really detailed fashion and to make notes on all the different things we can do and all the things that need to be addressed, right? And figure out what their triggers are and kind of prepare what I'm going to talk to them about. And so when I was preparing for her case, she had listed a whole bunch of issues. So she had Hashimoto's, irritable bowel syndrome, polycystic ovarian syndrome, brain fog, celiac disease. She was overweight. She had eczema, psoriasis, and asthma, depression, anxiety, fatigue, alopecia areata. So this is when people lose patches of their hair and, they kind of end up with bald spots on their scalps. She was sleeping for 14 hours, had sleep apnea, premature ovarian failure, migraines, and headaches. And I have to say, I was a bit overwhelmed because I'm looking at her case and I'm like, we have an hour together to spend on a consultation and maybe we can have a bit of a longer consultation, but we can't address every single one of these symptoms all at once. I generally focus on just 3 symptoms in a session at once to make sure that we do proper due diligence for them. And so the first time we were scheduled, she canceled within 24 hours, and I had already prepared for her case. I was kind of annoyed, but I didn't have a cancellation policy, so I just said, okay, let's have her reschedule. The second time she rescheduled, I kind of prepared for her case again. This didn't take me as long because I had done all the pre-work, but she canceled again. And finally, it was coming to the 12-week course had been long gone. It had been a few months since she had taken it. And we sent out a reminder that people needed to schedule their consultations with me. And so she scheduled the consultation and I was like, okay, is she going to cancel? Is she not going to cancel? This was taking place at the end of the year and I was, getting ready to go on vacation. And luckily I had all of her case notes. And so I was like, okay, we got on the phone. I got to, actually it was a video interview and I got to see this lovely person in person. And, I said to her, thank you so much. I've had a chance to review your case and I really appreciate you taking time to fill everything out. One of the challenges I'm going to have in this session is that we're only going to be able to focus on 3 different things. What are 3 priorities for you? And to that, Cheryl said, well, I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to update my intake forms, but my Hashimoto's antibodies are now in remission. I no longer have irritable bowel syndrome. I no longer have PCOS. My brain fog has lifted. My weight is starting to come down. I don't have eczema, psoriasis anymore. My asthma is much better. My depression and anxiety are much better. I'm also working with a therapist on that, and I feel like, I feel like I've got that handled. I'm no longer sleeping for 14 hours a day. I'm sleeping for 8 or 9 hours. The patches on I'm no longer having these patches on my scalp and the hair has started to grow back. Sleep apnea doesn't seem to be an issue. And the premature ovarian failure, that's not something that I'm testing for anymore. And I no longer have the migraines or headaches. And, I sort of, my jaw like almost dropped at that point, right? And she's like, I've gone through the program and I've done everything that you said in all these 12 modules. And I really have to thank you because this has changed my life. And now I understand how to properly care for my body, all the things I need to do. And for the first time in years since I got married, I'm actually thinking that I want to have a baby. And I'm really, really excited. And I'm hoping that we can take this time to focus on how I can get my body ready for fertility. And so, of course, this made my whole day and month in life to see that somebody was able to take the program and actually learn how to properly care for themselves and learn how to recover their life and follow a dream that they never thought was possible. I mean, when you're sleeping 14 hours a night, and I know I've been there, and you have all these health issues, the last thing you want or think that you want is going to be bringing a child into your life, because you're like, okay, that's just not realistic. Even if you really desperately want to have a child, you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to take care of a baby when I can barely take care of myself? And it was really, really remarkable for me to see that Cheryl was now able to follow this kind of something that seemed like a distant fantasy, and that was to have a baby. And so really, this is what can happen when we take charge of our own health. Like, I have seen so many different symptoms disappear, but more importantly, so many dreams turn into goals and turn into reality for people that have taken this program. So I mentioned using nutrition, or food as medicine, or food as pharmacology, as I like to call it. And this is going to be one of the key things to addressing your vulnerabilities, to strengthening your body, is going to be doing proper nutrition for yourself and really learning how to properly care for and feed your body. So I really want to share this gift with you. There's a lot of different things in the program. There are 12 modules total that focus on the core elements of really strengthening your body and figuring out what your triggers might be. At the same time, I feel like nutrition is one of these things that you can do very much so on your own. And in many cases, we actually do see people going into remission just by taking this first step of optimizing their nutrition. And so I'm going to go into some detail here for you exactly on how to optimize your nutrition, so you have one of those key steps on how to take back your health. So it's always really, really exciting to see when somebody can use food as medicine to recover their health. This is just one of the stories that I receive on a, almost typical basis, whether it's on my Facebook page or one of the book reviews that somebody's written in my private forums, in my, email, or in any of the chats that people chat about thyroid disease and Hashimoto's. And it's, this was a story of a young woman who was in college. She said, I'm 20 years old and have been diagnosed with hypothyroidism since age 13, taking levothyroxine daily. When my TPO antibodies were checked in 2013, they were in the 1800 range. After reading your book, I started avoiding gluten, dairy, and sugar for 3 months. When I last tested my TPO antibodies, they were less than 50. And I see variations of this on a day-to-day basis, where it's somebody that had really high thyroid antibodies and now they're no longer testing positive for Hashimoto's. It's somebody that was on medications that was able to reduce their dose, somebody that had all these different symptoms, and now they were feeling energetic, fit, and their brain was working again. For this next section, I want you to take out a pen and paper and to write down, give yourself a point for every question that I ask you. So we're going to do a dietary assessment, and you're going to answer yes or no to each question. And you're going to give yourself 1 point for every yes, except for one of the yeses will give you actually 5 points immediately. And this is going to be an assessment to help you figure out if you still need to adjust your diet. So whether your nutrition is on par or not. So, you may have already tried various different types of diets. You may have tried various types of things. Maybe you're doing the paleo diet, or maybe you're doing gluten-free. And this assessment is going to help you figure out if you still need to optimize your diet. Now, I mentioned earlier in the course that we're going to talk about the benefits of diet and the limitations of diet. So, I really want you to focus on this assessment to make sure that you still need to focus on diet, or, if your diet is all dialed in, there may be a reason for you to look at other types of deeper root causes. So, first question is, I eat fewer than 6 servings of vegetables per day. Give yourself a yes if this is true. Give yourself 1 point. I eat more than 20 grams of sugar per day, including fruit or fruit juice. If that's a yes, give yourself a point. I eat gluten, 1 point. I eat dairy, 1 point. I eat soy, 1 point. I eat grains, 1 point. I eat processed and packaged foods, 1 point. I have never had a nutritional consult, 1 point. And I drink more than one serving of fruit juice per day. That's going to give you 1 point as well. I've never done an elimination diet. That's 1 point. I've never had food sensitivity testing, 1 point. I don't eat fermented foods, 1 point. I eat low fat, 1 point. I eat a high carbohydrate diet, 1 point. I'm vegan, you get 5 points for that. I'm vegetarian, you get 1 point for that. I eat seafood multiple times per week, 1 point. I have acne, 1 point. I have acid reflux, 1 point. I have bloating, 1 point. I have diarrhea, 1 point. If you said yes to more than 3 of these questions, or if you have more than 3 points total, this means that your diet still needs to be optimized. And so let's talk about how to do that. First, I want to dispel some of the top Hashimoto's food myths. One of the most common myths that I hear from people with Hashimoto's is that the low-carb diet is not appropriate for people with Hashimoto's. People will say that they've decided to go paleo or low-carb, and that they begin to feel more tired, so that therefore low-carb must be not appropriate diet for people with thyroid issues. And I want to give you guys a little bit of background on this. Carbohydrates are a quick-burning source of energy and fuel. And a lot of times people with Hashimoto's will find themselves going towards more of carbohydrate heavy diet for that quick energy source. Fortunately, the problem with that is that the quick energy source actually can put us on a blood sugar roller coaster, because carbohydrates burn very quickly. So they'll send our blood sugar levels very high very quickly, and then those levels will come crashing down just as quickly. And so we end up on this roller coaster of blood sugar swings, and these blood sugar swings can actually contribute to the development of Hashimoto's and thyroid antibodies, as well as adrenal issues. And one of the reasons why people with Hashimoto's and thyroid issues may prefer carbohydrates is oftentimes because many of them are actually deficient in stomach acid. Studies have actually shown that people with Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism have either low amounts or make no stomach acid at all. The stomach acid is necessary for the proper breakdown of proteins. So proteins, of course, are another way for us to get nutrients and energy into our bodies, as are fats. And we oftentimes will see, in some cases, people also have issues with fat digestion. And so fats and proteins are going to be this alternate fuel source to carbohydrates, and they're going to be better for us as far as blood sugar issues go, because they come up, they burn slower and at a gradual basis. So we get this nice steady state of having good amounts of blood sugar, not too high, not too low, and good amounts of energy throughout our day. But unfortunately, people with digestive enzyme deficiencies are not going to have access to the proteins and fats, because they're not going to be able to properly extract calories and energy from them. And so there are things you can actually do to make sure to address that. One of the things is really easy, is starting your day with a green smoothie. Whenever you start your day with a green smoothie, and I recommend putting coconut milk into that as a great source of fat, doing some great veggies, and I recommend protein powder. The Rootology hydrolyzed beef protein is one of the only autoimmune paleo proteins, I think the only autoimmune paleo protein on the market that you can utilize. And this provides you with a great amount of broken down protein, broken down fat that's easy for your body to absorb. You're also going to be breaking down some of the fibers in the vegetables so that you get proper nutrition from them, and that's not dependent on digestive enzymes. The other thing that's really, really great and very helpful for a lot of people is to actually take digestive enzymes with your food, especially protein and fat-containing food. Betaine with pepsin was a digestive enzyme that changed my life. So I started taking this digestive enzyme with my protein-containing meals. And once I got to the right kind of target dose, for me it was 3. You generally want to test it out and give yourself 1 with your protein-containing meals, and then work your way up until you feel a slight burn. Then you know that you need to back it down by 1 capsule. And within a few days, I was waking up. So I was sleeping 10 or 11 hours a night, and all of a sudden I woke up after 6 or 7 hours a night feeling bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, felt like myself for the first year since undergrad. Since my first year in college, I was like, wow, I'm back. And, my sense of humor came back, my outgoing personality came back. And just mind you, this was after I had already been on thyroid medications. This was when I was already gluten-free. This was when I was already, doing a little bit of the paleo diet. And this is something that can really change your life around. And a lot of people are not aware that they can take digestive enzymes.
Almonds. Some people will say that almonds are an excellent health food and that you should eat them every day. Now, I know the specific carbohydrate diet, the GAPS diet, a lot of these other paleo diets or alternative diets will base a lot of their products in almond flour. And while some people do really well with almonds, I will say that many people with Hashimoto's can be sensitive to almonds. Almonds are one of the top reactive foods in people with Hashimoto's. And so if you're eating them on a day-to-day basis, I would recommend you either go on an exclusion diet if you're still reacting to them, or you rotate them so you don't become sensitive. Rotation diet is generally when you rotate a food every 1 to 7 days. I'm going to be covering that protocol later on in this module as well. The other consideration with almonds and other kinds of nuts is they can be high in copper. Some people tend to accumulate copper, which is an issue. And we also see that they can be high in inflammatory fatty acids. We think about what a caveman or a cavewoman would eat. It would generally be a handful of nuts and seeds, right? It wouldn't be like a whole baked good or, bread filled with almonds, right? And so this is an important consideration. If you are currently eating almonds, we found that people who are almond sensitive oftentimes will have breakouts on their skin and they might have mood swings. So consider that as a potential food to exclude if you're eating it right now. Raw dairy. A lot of times people will say, okay, so I have Hashimoto's, but raw dairy is okay, right? You said not to eat dairy, but the raw kind is okay. And so raw dairy, perhaps if you drink it your entire life, you may be able to continually drink it. If you've never had any other kind of dairy, raw dairy may have never been an issue for you. However, chances are if you've already been sensitized to the dairy protein casein or whey from drinking conventional milk, you're likely going to react to the proteins in raw cow's milk as well. Goat's milk is also highly cross-reactive, and so that's not usually an option for most people with Hashimoto's. However, camel milk may be an option if you absolutely must have milk, and there are also some benefits of camel milk where it may show some benefit for helping with healing food sensitivities and helping with healing the gut. Goitrogens. So goitrogens are a common myth in Hashimoto's and thyroid disease. So goitrogens, people will say that if you have Hashimoto's or thyroid disease, you absolutely need to avoid goitrogens. And I have to say, that is an outdated myth. And goitrogen is kind of one of those words that I don't really like because it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Basically, it's a word that means something that can interfere with the production of thyroid hormone or somehow with thyroid function, and it used to be tied to producing a goiter back in the day. It's a deceiving word, and in relation to brassicas, so those vegetables like cabbage, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, what they do is how they are classified as a goitrogen is that they block iodine absorption into the thyroid gland. Now, this used to be an issue in the good old days, back when thyroid issues were caused by iodine deficiency. Nowadays, Hashimoto's is not a condition that's caused by iodine deficiency. It's actually a condition that's caused by excess iodine in many cases. I'm not saying that there's no person with Hashimoto's that has iodine deficiency. What I'm saying is that most people with Hashimoto's actually present with excess levels of it. And Hashimoto's tends to be independent of iodine status, although some people may benefit from small doses of iodine. Generally, it's not something that we need to worry about where we're concerned that the vegetables are blocking absorption. Now, generally, These vegetables like cabbage, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, they are going to be very healthy for us. They help us detoxify, and they're fantastic for liver support. And they can help us clear out various toxins from our body, and they're tasty, fabulous foods. There are some times where people may have challenges with them, and this would usually be because of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or if a person has a CBS mutation where they're not able to tolerate foods that are high in sulfur. So generally, these vegetables are going to be fine for most people. If you do have issues with iodine absorption, or if you're concerned, actually cooking, steaming, or fermenting the vegetables can break down the goitrogens, which block the absorption of iodine. Another common Hashimoto's myth is selenium from Brazil nuts. And so people will say, okay, if you've got Hashimoto's, you need to start eating 2 Brazil nuts a day. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, where people will say, okay, yes, selenium, you need it, so get it from Brazil nuts. And I've actually tested this with some clients and with myself, and taking 2 selenium nuts a day does not equal taking 200 micrograms of selenium methionine. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. We do not see the same results. We see with selenium methionine, when you take it consistently over the course of 3 months, we see reduction in antibodies, we see reduction in anxiety, we see reduction in symptoms. With Brazil nuts, we don't really see a lot of benefits, and it's not consistent. So Brazil nuts can have various levels of selenium in them depending on where they're grown, and eating 2 nuts a day does not guarantee the optimal dose. In fact, you may be underdosing or overdosing yourself. And we also will find that some people may also be sensitive to nuts, and so eating the Brazil nuts may be a way to do yourself a disservice. Now, again, one thing I wanted to be mindful of is that selenium is a Goldilocks nutrient, so it has a narrow therapeutic index, and doses under 200 micrograms have not shown benefit in Hashimoto's, whereas doses above 800 micrograms can be toxic. With many foods and many nutrients, I'm all about getting them from foods. But with selenium, I think this is such an important nutrient in thyroid function and Hashimoto's that you absolutely want to get a controlled dose of it so you know exactly what you're getting and that you're not underdosing or overdosing yourself. All right, so this is another myth, and that is seaweed and iodine, is that everybody with Hashimoto's should eat lots of seaweed and lots of iodine to get that iodine content up. So as I mentioned, Hashimoto's is not necessarily a condition of low iodine intake. It's actually more of a condition of poor iodine processing, and excess iodine can actually cause more inflammation in the thyroid gland. And so I recommend avoiding seaweed, I recommend avoiding spirulina, and I recommend avoiding high doses of iodine. Spirulina and chlorella oftentimes will have iodine in it depending on the source of the sea vegetables. So this is something that you really want to consider and want to be careful of and mindful of. I have seen clients who've developed Hashimoto's after adding like those seaweed flakes to their food on a daily basis. So, you know, people will say iodine is great for the thyroid. It's fantastic, but it's, you know, when you have Hashimoto's, the thyroid peroxidase enzyme, you have antibodies towards it. And whenever you have iodine in your body, the thyroid peroxidase enzyme gets expressed. So anytime you're taking an iodine, you're basically saying to your immune system, hey, come and attack my thyroid, come and attack my thyroid. And so generally, if you have elevated TPO antibodies, you don't want to take high doses of iodine. And I consider doses above 300 micrograms to be high. And you can actually get above 300 micrograms from eating seaweed.
Last but not least, I think this is one of the most dangerous myths or misconceptions about Hashimoto's, is that diet will heal all. And some people believe that if they just take out more foods, they'll be completely healed. Perhaps they had a friend or a neighbor, or they saw somebody on a forum that got into Hashimoto's remission by doing the autoimmune paleo diet. And they're trying to do the same thing to get themselves into remission, but unfortunately, they just keep losing more and more foods. Now, I'm a big proponent of using food as medicine. I've seen many dietary protocols be very successful for Hashimoto's, including the autoimmune paleo diet. But if you have other triggers, if you have other things going on within your body, that can actually prevent you from getting the benefits of the diet. And so if you've been doing clean eating for 3 months or so, and you're still not seeing huge benefits, if you're not in full remission, there's a good chance that you have additional triggers. And if you address these additional triggers, you can actually introduce more foods into your life, and your healing journey can be much, much shorter, and you can feel better right away without being so restricted. So let's talk about some of the most helpful dietary templates for Hashimoto's. And just to back up, I don't mean that you follow these diets to a T forever. I mean that these diets are going to be a helpful starting point for you, and then you modify them as necessary for you. In 2015, I surveyed over 2,000 of my readers with Hashimoto's and came across some interesting patterns as to which diets were the most helpful. So, based on this research survey, what I found is when people do specific food sensitivity testing, they feel better 62% of the time, and they actually see a reduction in antibodies 43% of the time. When they follow the autoimmune paleo diet, we see 75% of the time people feel better, 38% of the time they have reduced antibodies. Soy-free diet, we see about 63% of people feeling better, 34% reduced thyroid antibodies. With gluten-free, 88% of people feel better. Grain-free and paleo, about 81% of people feel better. And then the low FODMAP diet, which is utilized for people with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, among some other types of issues, about 39% of people feel better on this diet, which is interesting because about 50% of people with Hashimoto's have SIBO. Now, these diets also have an effect on reducing thyroid antibodies. So the greater the thyroid antibodies, the more aggressive the attack is on the thyroid gland. So we want them, the lower the better, right? And so all of these diets actually had an impact in reducing thyroid antibodies. So 33% saw a reduction in gluten-free diet, 28% in grain-free, and then 27% in paleo and low FODMAP diets. Additional type of diets, the vegan diet, fortunately we only saw 30% of people feel better on this diet, and 28% of people actually felt worse. We did see 23% of people were able to reduce their thyroid antibodies. However, this may be related to people getting off of dairy and eggs. If you look a little bit further down, you'll see that dairy-free diet helped 79% of people, and they saw about 20% saw a reduction in antibodies, whereas with the egg-free diet, 47% felt better and about 19% had reduced antibodies. The low glycemic index is also here. 76% of people felt better, about 22% were able to reduce antibodies. Nightshades are vegetables like tomatoes, bell peppers, other kinds of peppers, and eggplants, and these vegetables can cause an adverse reaction in some people. Specifically, they can cause a lot of joint pain, and 48% of people felt better off of nightshades when they had Hashimoto's. 14% saw a reduction in thyroid antibodies. Now, red meat is another thing that's been a bit controversial in the last few years, where some people said that eating meat is a bad thing, right? And so I wanted to survey my readers with this, and about 40% of people felt better off of red meat, but about 14% felt worse. And we saw 8% saw a reduction in antibodies. So, this number doesn't really lead me to think that eating red meat is not necessarily bad for Hashimoto's. And in fact, some people will feel worse when they're not eating red meat. I really want to point out the vegan diet, where we had about as many people feel worse as many people felt better. When you compare that to some of the diets on the first page, for example, the gluten-free diet, we saw 88% of people feeling worse, or 88% of people feeling better, and less than 1% feeling worse. And so this is something that's very, very remarkable and very clear. This is over 2,000 people. And so this leads us to talk about the optimal diet for you. So let's talk about the components of the optimal diet. All of these things should be in place. So the diet should provide you with beneficial bacteria, should provide enough nutrients for you, provide enough calories, provide enough protein, provide enough fat, balance blood sugar, be free of reactive foods, and be low in chemicals. Some of the top dietary concerns in Hashimoto's specifically are going to be blood sugar swings. These can actually lead to an uprise in thyroid antibodies, stress out the adrenals, and they can also cause, surprise, surprise, mood swings. Food sensitivities are a very common issue in Hashimoto's, gluten, dairy, and soy being the most common. We have seen some people getting into remission when they get off of reactive foods. Toxicity from processed foods, pesticides, and hormones. This can also play a role in Hashimoto's. Things like Splenda have been associated with triggering Hashimoto's. Some people have been able to get into remission by getting off of Splenda. Not getting enough protein and fats in our diet, so oftentimes that means we're going to be eating too many carbohydrates, and that's going to put us on a blood sugar roller coaster. Not getting enough protein on board is also going to prevent us from properly making thyroid hormone, because tyrosine is an amino acid that we oftentimes get from protein. Not getting enough micronutrients. So this is going to be vitamin and mineral deficiencies. This is a very, very common root cause and trigger in Hashimoto's. So I talked specifically about selenium as a potential root cause, and this is very much something when you start utilizing selenium, you can start seeing a reduction in thyroid antibodies as well as your symptoms in as little as a few weeks and about 3 months to see the full effect. So the ideal Hashimoto's diet is going to be nutrient dense, so we're going to be full of nutritious foods that are going to be packed with vitamins and minerals. I generally recommend that you try to get 6 servings of veggies per day. This could be in purees, this could be in smoothies, this could be in salads, sometimes in green juices. Low in sugar, no processed foods, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. This is where I have most people start off because these are so commonly reactive in people with Hashimoto's. More than 60% of people will be reactive to soy, 80% to dairy, and as well as 88% plus to gluten. Free of other sensitizing foods, low in carbohydrates. There's actually a study that was published on the low carbohydrate diet comparing that to a low calorie diet in Hashimoto's, and the study found that people eating low carb actually had reduced thyroid antibodies and reduced their weight. Low in fructose. We want to make sure that any fish that we're eating don't contain a lot of mercury. Mercury is a powerful toxin to the thyroid. High in fat, adequate in protein, organic whenever possible, and that we utilize fermented foods to restore some beneficial bacteria for ourselves. The diet templates that I found to be the most helpful are the gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free diet. So we see a lot of positive results with that. So you would take that diet and start off with it. You could also do the root cause paleo diet. So we see a lot of people having a lot of success with the paleo diet. This is something that can be modified to you as well. The root cause autoimmune diet, and then the root cause rotation diet. The rotation diet is when you make a schedule for yourself and you rotate your foods so that you don't become sensitive to them. This can be very helpful for people with thyroid disease and leaky gut and Hashimoto's, because in some cases, whatever foods we're eating, we can be sensitive to. And so the premise of this diet is that you only eat a food every 4 to 7 days. So if you were to eat chicken on Monday, you wouldn't eat it again until Friday, or potentially the following Monday. Now, this can be very, very helpful. It's one of the advanced diets that I recommend for people with Hashimoto's. And in the Hashimoto's self-management program, I go into details when to use each diet and how to use each diet. And we also have meal plans and recipes for each of the diet types, as well as shopping lists to make life easier for you. So I want to know, which of these diets have you tried and were you successful? We also see that some foods are very helpful for people with Hashimoto's. Specifically, 70% of them benefit from homemade bone broth, 69% from green smoothies, and 57% from fermented foods. So not very people are aware of this, but there are specific symptoms that are correlated to specific foods. For example, whenever I have a person who's experiencing a lot of pain in the body, I'm immediately thinking that they need to get off of grains and get off of nightshades. So nightshades are eggplants, tomatoes, and bell peppers. And we oftentimes see that the pain goes away. For people who have issues with anxiety, oftentimes caffeine, sugar, and soy are going to be 3 reactive foods. And then we also talk to people about getting blood sugar balanced. For people with gallbladder attacks, this is another example, we find that eggs and oranges can actually be a potential root cause. In the Hashimoto's self-management program, we go over all of these dietary guidelines, how to modify your diet. We have meal plans, shopping lists, and recipes for all diet templates. I talk about how to use specific enzymes based on your symptoms, how to optimize your digestion, how to reduce your food reactions, as well as how to tailor your diet to your needs based on your specific symptoms that you may be having. And I really put this program together for you to sort of make life easier, because it took me a while to figure all this out. And I know what it's like to sort of be lost out there and be struggling with your health. For me personally, I had, I got worse before I get better, and it hurts me to see a lot of people online that are talking about how they just keep getting more restricted in their diet and they're not getting better. They're still suffering with all these symptoms, but they may not know which specific foods are triggering them. It's really important for you to know how to tailor your diet to your own needs, and then know when to move on from diet and know when to dig deeper. So I have to share with you, many people think that food sensitivities are at the root cause of Hashimoto's, and I definitely say that they are a contributing factor, and in some cases they are the sole root cause. In the case that it is the root cause, so a true food intolerance root cause, this is only going to be related to a single food or at max 2 or 3 foods. So the common ones are going to be gluten, dairy, and soy. Gluten intolerance and dairy protein intolerance are the most common reported, and removing the food from your diet is going to produce a resolution of the majority of your symptoms. So if the food intolerance was your only root cause, then you should be able to get into remission in about 3 months. And you should not be sensitive to additional foods. If you are sensitive to more than these 3 foods, if you are having still symptoms after more than 3 months on a more restricted diet, we need to dig deeper than just looking at your nutrition. I just want to be really clear with you about what nutrition can do, because nutrition can really, really do a lot for the Hashimoto's triggers. So obviously, if your trigger is a food sensitivity, and if you remove that food, that's fantastic. You can do that with nutrition. Whenever we are eating nutrient-dense, full of veggies, adequate protein, and avoiding processed foods, we're likely going to address some nutrient deficiencies as well. Whenever we address our blood sugar, we're eating low carb, low sugar, high fat, eating blood sugar balanced. This is going to help out our adrenal issues a lot of the times, and potentially reduce the blood sugar swings and the anxiety and the blood sugar fire on the thyroid gland. If we have dysbiosis in our gut, eating fermented foods can actually help to bring that back into balance. And if we happen to be toxic, eating foods that are low in mercury, not too much in iodine, and that are not processed is actually going to help us get rid of some of the toxins. Additionally, eating foods like broccoli and crucifers can actually help us clear some of the toxic backlog from our bodies as well. Now, there are times and limitations of diet, and I just want to mention with nutrient deficiencies, for example, we are usually not able to get every single nutrient from our diet. So for example, we can't get vitamin D from diet. We generally get that from the sun, or we need to take it as a supplement. If we don't have enough digestive enzymes on board, for example, if we have low stomach acid, even if we're eating steaks all day, every day, we're not going to be able to absorb the iron from the steaks unless we take digestive enzymes for protein. Sometimes we might have infections that are going to cause us to have nutrient deficiencies. So H. pylori can have an effect on depleting us of B12, so can small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Sometimes nutrient deficiencies are also caused by toxins, because the toxins prevent the nutrients from properly binding where they need to be. We may need some protocols to clear that. Additionally, whenever I see somebody with multiple food sensitivities and they're just, reactive to everything, there's a really good chance that these people oftentimes have some sort of a gut infection, such as a protozoan parasite, Blastocystis hominis, or even H. pylori. I also want to share with you that diet will not heal additional Hashimoto's root causes. So chronic infections such as Epstein-Barr virus, H. pylori, Blastocystis hominis. There's a whole bunch of different infections that have been correlated with triggering Hashimoto's, and many people have them. And diet will not get rid of those infections. We may need additional treatments. We may need herbs, sometimes, antivirals, antifungals, antibiotics. With severe toxicity, when we're very, very heavy in heavy metals or other kinds of toxins, it's always good to have a good diet, but we're not going to be able to clear out all the toxins just with nutrition. We may need supplements, medications, and advanced therapies. Emotions and stress in your life, really, if you don't address the traumas you've had in your life, if you don't address your current stress, if you're still really hard on yourself and a type A personality, that's only going to put you in a state of fight or flight, and that is going to make your body feel like it needs to slow down its metabolism and keep attacking your thyroid gland. And then, of course, we have hormone deficiencies. Some people will talk about how you can heal anything with diet. And in some cases, I do see people can change their diet and then they no longer need thyroid hormones, or perhaps they no longer need female hormones or testosterone or DHEA or other types of hormones that we may need to supplement with. But, that's usually not the majority of people. A lot of times we will need additional hormonal therapies, supplements, as well as medications to properly balance our hormones, in conjunction with nutrition, of course. And the reason why I share all of this, and the reason why I'm so passionate about this, is because I have been to the dark side of healing with food. And as much as I really appreciate using food as medicine, and I eat a really delicious, clean diet most of the time, there was a time in my life where I lost the ability to understand what diet was doing for me and what the limitations of diet was. This was earlier on in my health journey, and I went from being overweight and pale to becoming severely underweight. You see in the left picture, my hair was so thin and it was in a ponytail. I'm wearing a sweatshirt outside. This is the middle of summer. In the middle picture, you can see, you can see my bones. I was a bridesmaid for my husband's sister's wedding, and this was very embarrassing for me. I looked so bad. My entire back was broken out because of back knee. My skin was kind of turning a yellowish pale color. You can see in the picture on the right, I was having bald spots. My skin was such a yellow color, and my thighs weren't even touching. I just had lost so much weight. And this is when I was on the specific carbohydrate / GAPS diet. And I just kept eating a lot of these nuts and seeds, and I didn't realize that it wasn't doing anything for me. I remember this was a particular trip we went up to see some of my parents or my husband's family, and some of them were concerned that I was anorexic, right? And they were saying, why is she avoiding all this food? And even my husband got really upset with me, and he was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You need to eat like everybody else eats. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to heal myself with diet. And of course he said, well, clearly it's not working. Just look in the mirror. You look real thin. You're scaring me. I'm worried about you. And this was a really big wake up call for me, that I needed to really look at deeper than nutrition for my healing journey. And so things that I learned along the way is that I was very nut sensitive. And so I was eating all these nuts, and they were actually causing my skin to break out and were preventing my liver from detoxing properly. I also had copper toxicity. So the copper toxicity makes your hair kind of turn an orangey color. It makes your skin turn an orangey color, and it makes you very, very tired. It can make you lose weight, and it also causes cystic acne. And I also had a couple of parasites, or one parasite and one infection, yeast overgrowth and SIBO. So I had H. pylori, I had Blastocystis hominis, yeast overgrowth, and SIBO. And so I needed to address all these different things to actually get my health back and to feel my best and to be the person, the vibrant, shiny person I am today. And if I had just kept eating the same diet and excluding more foods, I just would have been sicker, and I just would have become sensitive to whatever I was eating. And in fact, that's sort of what happened. I started off gluten and dairy free, felt better. And then I thought I'd do the GAPS diet. after some time because I hit a plateau, and then I did the GAPS diet and actually started getting worse and worse and worse. I really hate sharing those pictures, but I just feel like it's such an important point because, I've never personally had an eating disorder in my life prior to that, where I got basically obsessed with clean eating and thinking that diet was going to cure me of everything. And there's a condition that's newly been described known as orthorexia nervosa. This is a new distinct eating disorder where people think that they just keep removing foods, and if they're going to clean eat, that's going to help them resolve all their health issues. And paradoxically, they're doing it to be healthy, but this leads to unhealthy consequences. And so a big part of it, and for me this happened, I lost my ability to eat in a natural and intuitive manner. And this also led to social isolation, anxiety, reduced interest in other activities, and in rare cases, severe malnutrition or even death. And of course, I didn't get to the latter part, but yeah, I stopped hanging out with my friends. I was always anxious. I was always worried about being glutened. I didn't want to leave the house. And I was just constantly obsessed with, preparing my foods and eating all these things, and it really had a limit on my life, on how this kind of food journey I was on was really taking away from my health rather than adding to it. Now I've been able to actually eat in a very natural, intuitive manner. So a lot of people ask, what do I eat like nowadays? And I still consider myself a clean eater, but today I had paella for lunch, right? And I had some sweets, and I can eat really a variety of foods now. I still avoid gluten and dairy, and I also avoid nuts because I tend to have a genetic variation that makes me accumulate copper. And so I like to avoid those things, and I would say all of the time. And then I try to eat mostly a paleo diet with some grains and some fruit, 80% of the time. And whenever I travel, I can eat sweets, I can eat whatever I feel like, and then it doesn't necessarily affect me. So I don't feel bad the next day. I don't get joint pains. If I happen to have, some gluten-free sweets, I don't get edgy, I don't get moody, I don't have, these blood sugar swings. And sometimes, I feel like eating more fruit, and I eat more fruit and I feel better. And my body actually kind of sends me messages on what type of things I need to be putting in it. It's quite remarkable when you establish that connection with your body. And so again, I really want to talk about getting to the root causes of Hashimoto's. And food sensitivities and nutrition are definitely a root cause. But we also want to look at nutrient depletions, the stress response, chronic infections, intestinal permeability, as well as toxins. And if you've been on a gluten-free diet for 3 months and still not in remission, I highly recommend that you think about these other root causes. If you're losing more and more foods, if you feel like you've hit a plateau with your diet, we oftentimes need to dig deeper. And you know what? When we address all these other underlying imbalances, we're going to be more of a balanced person altogether. We're going to be reactive to less foods. We're going to be feeling good on a day-to-day basis. And so just really want to put it out there. I know there's so much wonderful information about nutrition, but there's also some misinformation out there on everything that nutrition can do. Nutrition does have its limitations. We may need to dig deeper. And I really encourage you to be kind to yourself and be gentle with yourself, and know that this is a journey. So we take it day by day. We take it one step at a time. And a lot of times we don't develop Hashimoto's overnight. There are a few different systems that are out of balance, and I really want to show you how to get back into balance. Next, I really want to share with you what I learned from working with thousands of people with Hashimoto's. So over the last few years, I've had the honor and privilege of assisting lots and lots of people with Hashimoto's on their health journeys. And generally for me, most people that come and see me as a practitioner have already done the diet thing, because there's so much fantastic information out in the world about nutrition. And, and I have blogs about it, and I also have recipes and meal plans that people can get. And so this is a pretty easy resource to get a hold of. And I'm so proud of the people that are trying it and getting motivated to change their life, because a lot of times it makes people feel significantly better. And we have seen some people get into complete remission with diet. However, for the people that I work with, and I call them the diet non-responders, they're going to have symptoms and antibodies persisting, even with clean eating, quote unquote. And this is oftentimes because they have additional root causes, additional things going on. So adrenal dysfunction. 93% of my clients that I've tested actually had adrenal dysfunction. So basically, their adrenals are not working correctly. That means their thyroid is not going to work correctly. Their body is going to be breaking itself down rather than building itself back up and healing. 78% of people have infections. So this could be SIBO, this could be H. pylori, this could be different types of parasites, Epstein-Barr virus. And these infections can actually sabotage our healing. And then 95% of people had moderate toxicity to high toxicity, which means that they had all these toxins circling around their body, and no wonder they weren't getting better with eating clean. And so we want to consider the whole person. We want to consider everything that may be going on with you, and we want to address all these factors in a systematic way, in a great approach to really get you back to healing and get you back on target and get you back to living life once and for all, so you don't have to be sick, you don't have to be eating a super restricted diet, and you can feel like yourself again. This is really, really my big wish for you. Over my history of working with numerous people with Hashimoto's, I found some common patterns in people who get better, who get their health back and meet their health goals. And these include a positive can-do attitude, supportive spouse, partner, or network, or accepting the support of others, being grateful for small gains and improvements, celebrating small successes, like maybe you just stopped losing hair. That's a big success, even though it hasn't fully come back. Not being afraid to dream big, having stress relief hobbies such as yoga, writing, working out, knitting, willing to invest in yourself and really knowing that you're worth it, not stopping to live your life just because you have Hashimoto's, willing to ask for help from others, and willing to surrender your needs to control the situation. Last but not least, willing to rest when you need to rest. I've also found some predictors of poor outcomes, such as being attached to a dogma. And so this person may think that they just need to do, diet, that only diet is the way, or only medications are the way, or that they're not willing to invest in lab testing. And so I've seen this, unfortunately, time and time again when a person says, well, I think the vegan diet is the best, but it's not necessarily working for them. People who aren't willing to invest in themselves, so they won't go see a doctor that doesn't take their insurance or pay out of pocket for a supplement. People who are guru shoppers, so they get multiple opinions from multiple practitioners, but don't follow through on the recommendations, or kind of pick and choose from the different recommendations, which in some cases may actually be contradicting and not be a part of a full plan. Perfectionism and unrealistic expectations, so I want to completely get off of medications and have zero antibodies next week. If somebody has had Hashimoto's for 20 years, of course, that would not be realistic. Getting caught up in being sick. So in some cases, being sick can become a part of one's identity and a way for us to get attention from others. So this is going to be something that we really want to address and do a deep dive into. Paralysis by analysis. So knowing all about the gluten-free diet, the dairy-free diet, and all these different things, but not knowing where to start, or just not taking the next step. People who are socially isolated and don't have a support network. So this can be very, very stressful. And research has shown that social rejection and social isolation can actually alter thyroid hormone profiles. I think the biggest thing that I learned in supporting thousands of people with Hashimoto's is that dogmas are dangerous, and a whole approach that is patient-centered and integrative is going to be the best and most effective for most people. Generally, we want to make sure we're looking at the whole person and we're utilizing all of the different types of modalities. So we're not just focusing on diet. We're not just looking at supplements. We're not just looking at medications or triggers or infections. We really want to look at the person as a whole and think about what are all the different things we can do to make ourselves better. I want to share a little bit about how I came up with the Hashimoto's self-management program. So when I was working in public health as a pharmacist, I came across a model called the diabetes self-management model. And this model was really, really fascinating because it was a way for patients to learn all about their condition, and it was a specific structured format over the course of a certain amount of modules. Patients were able to learn how to take charge of their diabetes. And there's a lot of research behind this that shows that patients who took this diabetes program actually had better outcomes compared to patients that just worked with their doctors. And patients who worked with their doctors and took the program altogether had the best potential outcomes. And so my goal for you with this program is for you to know all about your Hashimoto's and know how to properly self-manage and care for yourself. And so that you'll get more benefits from using this program, that's my hope and goal for you, than you will from working with an individual practitioner. We have seen this time and time again. And if you are working with a practitioner that's trained in functional medicine, that your healing will just be accelerated. This course will teach you how to get in tune with your own body. I really want to teach you how to fish, so I want you to understand your body's subtle messages, because life can be stressful, life can be hard, we can have different setbacks on our journeys, and you want to know how to dial that in for yourself and how to properly care for yourself. I know that there's a limited amount of practitioners who really know what they're doing with Hashimoto's, and they're also quite expensive. Just seeing a practitioner for one session can be anywhere from $300 to $800 depending on where you live, and oftentimes you need 10 to 12 sessions to fully get dialed in. Where the self-management course, you get 12 modules that are really focused on shortening your learning curve, so that reduces your dependency on doctors, and so that you no longer have to see them for 12 different appointments to feel better. You can utilize a lot of the self-management principles and start feeling better on your own, and use the doctor to dial things in and to tweak things for you. And last but not least, I really wanted to create this course to share some of the things I learned the hard way with you, so that you wouldn't have to go through the same kind of issues that I went through. So I went through, trying chelation and getting a horrible full body rash from that. I tried all of these different things and got myself worse before I got better. And it's sort of a jungle out there with all this information. All of these, natural medicine is not regulated, not standardized. And so I wanted to come up with a way to standardize the approach to Hashimoto's that was approachable and made sense to everybody, and focusing on strengthening the body and doing all the things that will help you get better in tune with your body and get your body to be stronger and more resilient. This course is set up in a specific way. So I actually start you off with getting you to understand what kind of testing you need and how to properly interpret your tests. We focus on putting you in a mindset where you go through figuring out how to get your body from the fight or flight state that takes apart our cells and intestines and leads us to be more likely to fall ill, into the rest, digest, and heal state. We focus on optimizing thyroid hormone medications. We focus on supporting the liver, which helps us detoxify and get rid of some of the toxic backlog. This is generally with liver support is when people see dramatic changes. About 65% of them feel better after 1 to 2 week liver support than they did for 5, 10, sometimes 15 years working with a practitioner. We focus on optimizing food, then on optimizing digestion, adding nutrients, supporting immune function, and addressing adrenals. All these things are going to be focusing on making you stronger, and they're also going to be tailored to you. So through these modules, I teach you the principles of nutrition that you need to know for your thyroid, as well as how to optimize it for your own body and how to make all these things practical for you. So I talk about how to know if you need digestive enzymes, what kind of digestive enzymes to take, how long to take them, when to take them, when you shouldn't take them. With nutrients, I talk about how you might know you might be deficient in them, and how to properly utilize them and how long you need to take them. I focus on specifically getting rid of nodules and getting rid of thyroid antibodies in the immune function module. And then addressing adrenals, we really focus on the fundamentals of self-care, as well as doing some advanced testing. Then we get more focused into infections. and figuring out what some of your triggers may be. And we focus on what kind of lab tests you need to do. You also have options to self-order lab tests if you don't have somebody that's working with you. And then I share a whole host of different protocols that I know work for infections. After that, we really focus on gut rebuilding because it becomes a lot easier once you've done this pre-work. And then we focus on remission, getting and staying into remission. The course is focused on strengthening your body and removing triggers. So we're going to be making sure that we're optimizing your diet and macronutrients, optimizing detox pathways, resetting your stress response, addressing chronic infections, gut healing, removing toxins. I've created a root cause assessment, and this is a questionnaire based on my experience in working with people with Hashimoto's that will predict your risk of potential root causes. So you could prioritize your interventions and tests as well as adjust accordingly on how you need to tailor your approach. And so I've got over 30 different types of root causes. I just added some new ones in there. And to help guide you, I also have specific recommendations based on root causes. For example, if you have a root cause as adrenals, I talk about the specific tests you need to do and then a specific resource that you need to review. So a lot of these root causes are going to be covered throughout the course. And then there's also going to be some specific suggestions for root causes such as breast implant illness. We're going to have specific recommendations for that. For copper toxicity, we're also going to have specific tests that you need to do, as well as a specific guide that's going to be found inside of the course. I'm releasing this course in a big way this year because I feel like I am really, really wanting to let people benefit from the information that's in the course. It's been a really, really long time in the making. So I first released it in 2014, and this was piloted with my one-on-one clients. So I was working with a lot of people with Hashimoto's, and I wanted to figure out a way for them to not be so dependent on talking to me and working with me. And so I created that course specifically for them to supplement them as they were working with me. In version 2 of the course in 2015, I released it to 100 people. And these people, they also, some of them got an option to do one-on-one consult with me. And then we did a lot of analysis with them as well as looked at all of their results. And only at that point, when I became comfortable with the outcomes of the 100 people that went through the course, that this was actually working and people were getting better on their own without necessarily needing somebody to hold their hand along the process, is when I decided to release it in a bigger way. As of 2016, over 2,000 people have completed this course. And as of 2017, this brand new version that I'm sharing with you, we've added a whole host of additional root causes as well as solutions. And so I would say we've gotten about 15 new root causes added and just as many new solutions that were added to the course. Some of the stats from the course, I was very, very proud of this. In my past life, I used to work in outcomes research and looked at how various health outcomes, how various health interventions led to improved outcomes for patients. And so, I did my little nerdy survey and analysis and was really, really proud of the results. 97% of people who completed the course said that it helped them improve their knowledge of Hashimoto's. 81% saw either a resolution or a big improvement in their depression. 80% saw a reduction in stomach pain. 75% saw a reduction in joint pain. 74% an improvement in fatigue. 73% reduction in TSH. 71% improved their acid reflux. We also had a 60% success rate, 60% plus, I should say, of people feeling better, significantly better after completing the liver support for 1 to 2 weeks. And this was actually 65% of people felt significantly better, sometimes when they felt ill for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. We had more than 60% people reduce and improve their brain fog and then reduce their irritability. I want to share one story that I was really excited about from the initial group of clients, and one of the reasons I decided I needed to get this out into a bigger way was Michelle. And so Michelle had Hashimoto's and multiple chemical sensitivities. She had arthritis, an elevated TSH, heart palpitations, as well as elevated thyroid antibodies. Now, her problem was that her multiple chemical sensitivities made her reactive to everything in the environment. And so she could barely leave her house to get out into the real world. And this was around Christmas time where I got a message from her, and she said, "Oh my goodness, I just completed the liver support. I just did it for, she did it for 1 week, and I'm at the mall with my daughters shopping for Christmas for the very first time in years." And she's like, "I can walk past a Yankee Candle store at the mall and not hold my breath." So, all the different scents and things that they spray in the malls, a lot of people with chemical sensitivities are highly reactive to them. And through doing the liver support, she was able to lift the chemical sensitivity that she had for years. Her joint pain had subsided. Her TSH had normalized. This was later on. Her heart palpitations had gotten better. Her TPOs dropped. And she also, a big change in her was that she was much, much happier. So she felt, I would say, I don't know if she had the diagnosis of depression necessarily, but she felt depressed. And she felt like life was just hard. And having the ability to go to the mall and to experience life without being reactive to everything gave her newfound hope and joy that she hadn't experienced for many years. And this was around Christmas, which was extra nice. We also had more than 50% success rate in reducing thyroid antibodies, reducing palpitations, weight loss, morning fatigue, and night sweats, as well as greater than 40% success rate of hair loss, insomnia, thyroglobulin antibodies, nervousness, and anxiety. So since that time, these were the results after the 12-week program. Since that time, I've also included symptom solutions. So symptom solutions are actually specific solutions and guidelines. They're going to be 1 to 2 page quick guides on how to properly address the various symptoms that you're dealing with. And for example, this one here, I have getting rid of cramps. One of the great ways to get rid of menstrual cramps, and it's amazing, women who have had them for years, their entire lives. If you start taking magnesium at bedtime, you take it every day. The first month, you're going to have period cramps reduced by 80 to 90%. The second month, you're not going to have any more period cramps. And there's simple solutions like that you can utilize. And I've created symptom solutions guidelines for anxiety, antibodies, cramps, muscle wasting, weight loss, weight gain, fatigue, hair loss, insomnia, and then quite a few others on there as well. We have a total of 15 of them that are placed in the portal for you so that you can access them right away as you go through the program. And you can say, okay, well, I have insomnia. Here's a little guide that I can start utilizing. I have cramps. Here's how I can get rid of cramps. And these are going to be at your fingertips. So I have a question for you. Which symptoms are you hoping to address? And which things are you especially struggling with and would you want to get rid of right away if you had a magic wand? So about the course format, you don't have to leave your house to take the course. You don't have to fly to Colorado to come and see me. You can actually take this course online. It's an online patient self-management program. So you could sit in your yoga pants and pajamas and do it on your iPad or on your laptop. You're going to get access to 12 modules where you'll learn everything. I used to tell all of my one-on-one clients for a fraction of the cost. This course is going to be self-paced, so you could do it as quickly or as slowly as you want. We're going to have a database of 1,000+ questions at your fingertips. So people that have gone through the course before, we've cataloged all of their questions and provided answers for them as well. We have assessments at every module to help you dial things in for yourself. So sort of like the assessment that we did on nutrition to help you figure out if you needed to dial that in. We have that for every single module. Through the course, you're going to discover how to resolve your thyroid symptoms very quickly. So even if you've had them for many, many years, a lot of the symptom solutions can work in days. It's really, really amazing when we see people improving when they've had symptoms for many, many years. A lot of times it's going to be based in using high dose nutrients, and different symptoms respond well to different nutrients. You're going to learn about dental triggers that may be relevant for you. Not a lot of people talk about this on the internets or in functional medicine, but dental triggers can actually bring on Hashimoto's. You're going to learn about which lab tests to do, how to turn your body's regeneration settings on, how to optimize medications, how to reduce antibodies and shrink your nodules, how to get and stay into remission, how to regenerate thyroid tissues, how to understand your lab tests. Really, there's a whole host of information that you're going to learn in a really, really easy to digest format. So just to clarify, there's not going to be a lot of science in the course, so you're not going to be overburdened with big words and really long, really long big words and complicated concepts. It's all going to be practical. Here's what you need to do. If you've got this symptom, these are the top things. These are the 5 to 10 steps that you need to take to get yourself better. I've tried to make it as practical as possible for you. And so I have recipes, meal plans, and shopping lists for you for the autoimmune paleo diet, for the paleo diet, for diets modified for candida, low FODMAPs, a whole host of different conditions where you'll have access to these meal plans to make life easier. I have supplement guides, so how to use each supplement, which dosage to use, which brand to get, how long to use it, what are some things to watch out for, what are some potential lab tests you need to do. You're going to have an option to order your own labs, as well as every lab will come with a lab interpretation video so that you understand how to interpret your own labs and actually potentially in some cases take action on them. We also have supplement discounts throughout the course so that you'll have access to high quality supplements at a discounted price that's going to be cheaper than getting them through Amazon or through your practitioner. I hope you're as excited about the course as I am, and I also want to let you know that this course is not for everybody. And I want to make sure that you only take the course if you're going to benefit from it, because that's really my purpose and goal in life, is to help you get your health back, and want to make sure that this course is right for you. And so this course is not for you if you're in urgent need of medical care. So if you are feeling really, really like you're losing a ton of weight, or you're just feeling awful and need a lot of help and medical care that's urgent or emergency based, please call 911 or go to the emergency room and get the care that you need there. This course, you don't want to be on a course that's going to take 12 weeks and educate you on lifestyle change. If you don't like to learn online, then this course is not going to be for you because it's online based. If you don't have time to dedicate to your healing, then you're not going to want to take this course because you do need to invest your time. If you're not willing to change your diet, your supplement regimen, your routine, your medications, or do any lab testing, then you're not going to want to take this course because the course does teach you on how to do all these things. If you don't want to learn more about how to care for yourself and how to care for your condition, then don't take the course. And then if you also are just looking for somebody to heal you without participating in your own healing, then this course is probably not for you, because this course really teaches you how to activate your inner healer. That said, the people that we've had go through this course that have had really, really great outcomes, generally when they have symptoms like depression, fatigue, pain, brain fog, weight issues, hair loss, and want to be free of them, we have really good results with that. In people who have hit a plateau with their healing, we also can get them to the next level of healing. If you're losing instead of gaining foods, we've been able to get people back on more foods. If you think you've tried it all, this course is going to really help you. Believe me, you haven't, and this course can help. If you have antibodies and nodules that are stubborn and just won't go away, this course has a lot of strategies that will help you get them to go away. If your doctor doesn't know what to do with you, there's going to be some answers here for you. If you understand that I do not heal you and that you heal yourself, you're going to be a really, really good, great course participant and going to have great results from this. If you want to learn more on how to take charge of your own health, this is going to be great. If you're willing to dig for your root cause, and if you love to work on your own health, this is going to be fantastic for you. And then if you also know the basics of self-care but want an advanced understanding, you're going to really, really love this course and benefit from it. So I'm really, really excited that you were here with me, and I'm really excited to share information about this course with you. And this is something that we have available for you to join and enroll. And we do have a refund policy if you're not happy with the course. If you just wanted to get it, if you wanted to get the course and just try it out, you can definitely do that and see if it's the right fit for you. And if not, you can always ask for a refund. So we have no problem with that. And of course, I want to make sure the right people are in the course and are getting the benefit from it. And if you just wanted to look around and get it, that's totally okay. We can always issue you a refund. You just have to let us know. I'm really, really excited to be able to share this information with you. I hope that this webinar gave you some aha moments and some transformation ideas on how to take better care of yourself and some ideas on what your next steps might be. I really, my hope and goal and dream for you is that you can heal so that you can follow your dreams and shine your light in the world and be the person that you're meant to be in the world. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll be looking forward to getting some aha moments and your thoughts.
All right, guys, how are you doing? I wanted to see if you had some questions for me. I was seeing a few of them coming through. So June says, thank you for the wonderful info. Nadine says Q&A. So yes, we're here and we're doing Q&A. Let me just know if you can hear me, because this is live and sometimes these things don't go as planned. So let me know, can you hear me and see me? We're about to do the Q&A session. Alrighty. Hello, hello. Yes. Okay, great. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So, thank you for the info, is what you guys are saying. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that you thought this was helpful. Really excited about the program. It's taken quite a few years to develop, and it's just been recently upgraded to make sure that we address even more symptoms and root causes. So, Sergio wants to know, is there a test about vitamins, mineral deficiencies? There are tests that you can do for that. As a general kind of guide, I recommend using B12, vitamin D, and ferritin to get you started. In one of the modules throughout the program, I also have some advanced assessments that you could do. So for example, to determine if you have fatty acid deficiency, magnesium deficiency, digestive acid, and enzyme deficiency, to help you get more of those vitamins and minerals from your food. There's also some advanced testing you can do, like SpectraCell, which for some people is a miracle. For other people, it's hit or miss. But we do have a big focus on deficiencies in the nutrient model. Okay, Peg. Why would you have symptoms but no antibodies? So Peg, I don't know if we covered this recently. I think I sent out an email about it. I'm trying to think of when that was. Maybe it's been about 6 months. But people can have what's called seronegative Hashimoto's, where they do not make thyroid antibodies for whatever reason, or the specific antibodies that we measure. There may be other antibodies that they do make that we are not able to measure. There's researchers have identified, 7 to 8 different thyroid antibodies that I'm aware of in lab testing, and we only measure 3 of them at this time. So there is something known as seronegative Hashimoto's, where people do not have thyroid antibodies, but when you look at their thyroid gland under a microscope, under an ultrasound, you will see that Hashimoto's is going on in there. Okay, let's see here. Ooh, I could mark these complete. Okay. Sandra wants to know, is the program for somebody whose thyroid was removed? Yes, so absolutely. And this program has been modified to address the needs of people whose thyroid has been removed. So you can utilize pretty much every single recommendation in there. The only thing that you wouldn't do would be using some of the thyroid regeneration protocols, because if you had your entire thyroid gland removed, the protocols wouldn't be able to regenerate it, right? So I think that you'll find the program very, very helpful. Okay, Lisa says she can hear me. Heat, thanks so much. Nadine, Pamela. Let's see. Pamela, how does high ferritin levels, where iron is the normal range, affect Hashimoto's? How can it be reduced? So high ferritin levels has been connected to a lot of cardiovascular issues. This is going to be more common in gentlemen as well as in women who are no longer menstruating. And so one of the ways is actually through lifestyle modifications, so making sure that you're not eating a lot of high iron foods, and then also through doing some blood donations, which I think is really nice because you get to help people in need as well. I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism with a high TSH and normal T4, but my thyroid antibodies are well within normal ranges. Does this mean I have autoimmune hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's? Do I have to go gluten-free? So I would say all of the same recommendations are going to apply to you. So we have something called seronegative Hashimoto's, where people do not have TPO or thyroglobulin or TSH receptor antibodies. So another way to test for Hashimoto's is looking under an ultrasound at your thyroid to see if you have the changes consistent with Hashimoto's. But we really, we would have to look at every single cell under a microscope of your thyroid gland and look for presence of Hashimoto's there. So the only way to realistically do that is if we were to take out your entire thyroid gland and look at it under a microscope, which of course I do not recommend. But for all intents and purposes, I would recommend that you follow the same guidelines for Hashimoto's because we find that the majority of cases in the United States are going to be due to Hashimoto's unless you've had your thyroid gland removed or congenital hypothyroidism. Christina, if you have a vast majority of these symptoms, with me developing food intolerances, do not have Hashimoto's, can we benefit from this course? Christina, yeah, absolutely you can benefit from this course. There's a specific thyroid module that talks about thyroid medication, so that module wouldn't apply to you, but there's 11 other modules that would. Specifically, I would want you to pay attention to the adrenal modules as well as the infections modules and the gut modules and food too, because all of these would address that. Definitely we've seen people who are losing more foods are more likely to have one or more triggers inside of the gut, such as infections. And I would highly recommend that you look at those, and we go through how to address that in the course. This course really, it would help people with irritable bowel syndrome. So we've seen really good results with that. We've seen really good results with people who are losing multiple food intolerances, with fatigue, with depression, and multiple chemical sensitivity. So if you have any of those symptoms that you're dealing with, even if you don't have Hashimoto's, this course will help you. It is specifically tailored for Hashimoto's, but honestly, a lot of the same things are going to apply for Hashimoto's that they would for people with food intolerances and general autoimmunity, other than being specific to thyroid-specific interventions. Thanks for asking. Lisa, what would be the benefit of this course over your books? So I like to, kind of think about if you were going to college or high school or another kind of class, and you had assigned reading for the semester, and then you had a class that you went to with your professor, right? And so it's kind of the two of them complement each other, where you have the book and you have the theory and you have all the information, and then you go to the classes and you get a lot of the more practical and hands-on stuff. And, we have a big question of databases, big database of questions that can be very helpful, over 1,000 questions from past participants that may address to you, and that may be relevant to you. I really couldn't put all of that information in my Hashimoto's protocol book that I wanted to. So initially, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but it was 120,000 words, and I still wasn't done. And my publisher said I needed to cut it down to 90,000 words. Or actually, they said 70,000 words, but they ended up compromising for 90,000 words. And so the course has a lot of information that I wasn't able to put into the Hashimoto's protocol book. So I talk about, there's over 30 different ways to reduce thyroid antibodies, for example. I wasn't able to talk about every single one of them in my book, and specific symptom solutions. The course also has specific symptom solutions. I would have loved to publish like a 1,000-page book on Hashimoto's, but unfortunately my publisher was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And of course, I try to make Hashimoto's protocol as helpful and as practical, and then the course as well. So I really see them as complementing one another. I hope that helps. All right. Okay, I already answered this high ferritin question. I already answered this. Already answered. Okay, good. Okay, this is scrolling a bit here. Okay, let's see. Victoria said Q&A. Wonderful info. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions here. Ooh, I found some more questions. Stephanie, can you have a healthy pregnancy having Hashimoto's? Is being on thyroid medicine a must for the rest of your life? Stephanie, so excitingly, yes, you can have a very healthy pregnancy having Hashimoto's. And I do recommend that you prepare for your pregnancy if you aren't already pregnant. One of the things to think about is, about 50% of people with Hashimoto's, for example, have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And you can treat that before pregnancy. Once you're pregnant, not so much, because you might have, you're not going to be able to take the herbs or antibiotics and any kind of detoxes and anything else like that. I would recommend that you do them before pregnancy and get your body ready and get your body as healthy as possible. If you already are pregnant, there are, of course, things you can do to make sure that you stay healthy during your pregnancy. For example, Wobenzyme, it's a systemic enzyme that I talk about during the program, and I've mentioned it in Hashimoto's protocol and some blogs as well. It's a fantastic enzyme that can reduce food sensitivities, reduce thyroid antibodies, as well as reduce the likelihood of miscarriage. Your other question was, is being on thyroid medicine a must for the rest of your life? I would say for the majority of people it is. Some people, they can get into remission where they can get off of thyroid medications. I would say that's not the rule, that's going to be the exception. But I also have some protocols inside of the course that talk about specifically how you can increase your chances on weaning off of medications. And there's also some advanced protocols that you can utilize. One of the things that I always think about is pregnancy increases your need for thyroid hormone. So I would probably work through, if you're planning on becoming pregnant, I would probably work through getting your root causes addressed, then, have the pregnancy, have a healthy pregnancy. And then after that, think about coming off of the hormones, just because during pregnancy, you don't want to be switching things around. Alrighty. Need liver support and adrenals, menopausal, so need to take into consideration. So many root causes suspected: childhood trauma, Epstein-Barr virus, Lyme, amalgam, grieving. Yeah, Sarah, any of these things could be potential root causes that create a sense of, feeling unsafe in our bodies. And that's why the course has 12 different modules, because we go through everything step by step, where we talk about, okay, what do we do for your liver? How are we going to take care of your adrenals? What are we going to do for, your thyroid gland? How are we going to optimize your hormones? And then we also talk about traumas. We talk about what are some of the best ways to overcome traumas, and what are some of the best ways to overcome different types of infections. I will say we cover a lot of different infections. We have protocols for Epstein-Barr virus. We have protocols for H. pylori, for SIBO, for different types of parasites. And we have information about Lyme disease, but Lyme disease is something that it would be beyond the scope of the course. However, everything that you do, like specific protocols for Lyme, everything that you do within the course is going to help you overcome Lyme disease. Christian, what causes 12 hours of sleep plus? Oh man, that was kind of the story of my life. Part of it is going to be low thyroid hormone. Not having enough thyroid hormone on board is going to cause that. Another reason for that would be nutrient deficiency, specifically in the nutrient thiamine that can be related. B12 deficiency, ferritin deficiency, adrenal fatigue, all these different things can cause your need for sleeping more, as can sleep apnea. These are some of the potential root causes to think about. The course goes through an assessment that basically you'll be able to take a questionnaire and that'll rate the most likely root causes for you. So it'll say like, oh, there's a good chance that you are at greater risk for X, Y, and Z. Melody, if you have mercury fillings, what can be done? So mercury fillings, and I talk about this in one of the advanced detox modules, is you're not necessarily going to be reactive to them. There's going to be a test you should do called ELISA to determine if they're going to be an issue for you or not. And I go through a specific protocol on what you need to do to get them properly removed. Because if you get them improperly removed, that could actually make you feel better instead of worse. Amanda, will we be able to re-listen to this webinar? Yes, so this has been recorded, knock on wood. The recording went well. Is the program testing available if I'm on South America? So Sergio, a lot of the program information is going to be relevant to South America. Many of the tests can be, I would say some of the tests can be mailed there and some of the supplements can be mailed there. We have a resource list if you email info@thyroidpharmacist.com. Some of the international resources, if you had more questions about that. We do have people from all over the world taking the course and benefiting from it. It does make it a little bit trickier for people outside of the United States because I have set up a warehouse that sends people's stuff inside of the United States, but the warehouse is not able to ship outside of the United States. So I've created some connections all over the world that would be able to help you guys out with the testing. Let's see here. What about drinking clean water? I do recommend drinking clean water. That's an excellent suggestion. Let's see. Can a UTI affect thyroid antibodies? You know, Andrea, this is a really interesting question. Potentially, there may be a correlation between some of the bacteria that are associated with UTIs and rheumatoid arthritis and possibly Hashimoto's. So it's possible. An infection during the childhood until 20 years old can be the root cause of Hashimoto's. Yes. What tests to do? My doctor does not pay attention. I did your test recommended for gut infection, but was no result. So I would say if you're looking for a gut infection, there's a few different tests I recommend. There's one called the 401H from BioHealth Lab, and then the GI map, which people can order through the program. These are some of the best tests out there that I'm aware of for figuring out infections, whether you have them or not. Mary, have you found that people with chronic fatigue have similar or underlying issues as thyroid? You know, absolutely I have. So people with chronic fatigue syndrome, they're going to have a lot of the same root causes where they're going to have potentially gut infections. They're going to have issues with nutrient deficiencies. They're going to have circadian rhythm abnormalities. So they're going to have adrenal issues. And they may also oftentimes will have viral infections, chronic viral infections. What's interesting is one of my colleagues, Dr. Jacob Teitelbaum, and I, he specializes in chronic fatigue, and had a chance to compare some notes with him and, you know, pick his brain a bit. And it does seem like a lot of the same root causes are going to be present with food sensitivities. So if you are dealing with chronic fatigue, I do think the course will be able to help. Krista, I have so many symptoms, but my labs do not show anything, cannot lose weight, and have been eating clean. Any suggestions? I would say starting off with like the liver support may be a helpful thing for you. Generally, whenever I think about people who are struggling with their weight, I think of toxins because toxins are stored in our fats, and the solution to pollution is dilution. So one of the ways that the body tries to compensate for having a lot of toxic exposure is to gain more weight so that the toxins are diluted more, rather than being present in such high amounts in every part of our tissue. So that's one thing that I would say to start with. And many of the protocols within the self-management program are likely going to be able to help you. Daphne, I've had my iodine levels tested and they were low. I'm taking Lugol's. Could this be affecting my thyroid? So unfortunately, there's not a really super reliable test for iodine deficiency, and some of the tests can produce false negatives and false positives. And unfortunately, we've seen with high doses of iodine that can be problematic for people with Hashimoto's and thyroid disease, unless they're deficient in iodine, which doesn't seem to be like a large percentage. I would say somewhere about 10% of those with thyroid disease, and maybe even less, actually have an iodine deficiency. Tonsil infection. Oh, okay. So Blanca was asking earlier about a tonsil infection, and that's why the gut test didn't reveal it. Yeah, with tonsil infections, I would look at potentially strep as a root cause on your healing journey. Several docs have refused to test for Epstein-Barr virus, saying that everybody has it, that half of the population has it, and has nothing to do if I have it. So they're actually wrong, because 95% of the population has it. And there are some people that have chronic Epstein-Barr virus and some people that have reactivated Epstein-Barr virus. The good news is through their course, you can self-order your own labs. I've set up one specific portal that allows people to, and of course check with your insurance, but allows people to get insurance reimbursement wherein they order their own labs online and they go to a Quest lab, and then they can submit the lab results to their insurance company, and you'd have to check with the cost of the lab fees. So you'd have to check with your insurance. But a lot of times, I feel as a pharmacist, I feel very passionate about patients having access to their own health and having the ability to order their own labs. And so this is why this is such a big part of the course, where I want you guys to have the freedom of ordering your own labs. So nobody is keeping this information behind closed doors from you. And I also teach you how to understand your labs and what to do about them. So if you indeed do have Epstein-Barr virus, then we do have Epstein-Barr virus protocols. And we've had recently, I was excited, somebody posted in one of our Facebook pages that they used one of the protocols and their thyroid antibodies went from 1,000 plus to 4, I want to say, using one of our Epstein-Barr virus protocols. Are there specific solutions other than True Rife to eliminate Epstein-Barr and Candida? I'm not familiar with True Rife. I think it's one of those, I think I have heard of some Rife machines, and I'm not familiar if they're effective or not. What I can tell you is that for Candida and for Epstein-Barr virus, we have herbal protocols that work really well. Is there a no link in autoimmunity associated with Hashimoto's and type 1? Absolutely. So both conditions are going to be autoimmune in nature, and we generally see people with type 1 diabetes have higher rates of Hashimoto's. Okay. Christina says, thank you. That was extremely helpful. As a fellow pharmacist, can I just say it's awesome what you're doing and how many people you've helped? Thank you, Christina. That just made my night. Really nice to be able to do what I love to do, which is empower people on how to take back their health. I know that for me, this was a big mystery and a big thing that took a lot from me. And I feel like I'm living my purpose now by being able to pass on some of the information that helped me. And hopefully that, my biggest hope and goal and dream is that I can shorten somebody else's learning curve. I can help you not be so tired. I can help you lose weight. I can help you feel like yourself again. And we've gotten really, really good results with the program and with my work. So I'm really excited to share this information with you. My thyroid was nearly dead 20 years ago. I just found out I have Hashimoto's. What else should I do? Added some vitamins, adrenal support, gluten-free, weight gain, food allergies. I would say, this is something that I'm glad that you found out now. I'm sorry it took you so long to do. And you're looking like you're on the right track. And if you don't get yourself into remission within 3 months or so, then I would consider taking the course to see if you need some additional guidance on that. If you're still struggling with your symptoms after those interventions, for some people we see they get on vitamin D and selenium and go gluten-free and things, turn right around. And that's fantastic. I've had a lot of success stories from people just reading my blog, and they get off of gluten. They're like, well, what else? Why did you write all these books? And like, what else is there out there? And that works really, really well for some people. But for others, we're going to need to dig deeper other than nutrient deficiencies and clean eating. And so this is who the course is for. Mars, do you endorse calcium EDTA IV chelation for heavy metals? So I talk about this a great deal in the course, and I'm not a big proponent of chelation as a first line thing to do because it can basically pull heavy metals and recirculate them if you don't have all your other ducks in a row. What I really love utilizing is actually adsorbents, which are basically things that pull the heavy metals and get them to attach to you. And then getting, you basically poop them out. And I also recommend using nutrients that displace the heavy metals because that just makes things a little bit cleaner and safer. There are some potential adverse reactions with EDTA and DMSA. I personally had a full body rash from DMSA, which, one of these days I'm going to write a book called Things I Learned the Hard Way, and that's definitely going to be in there with pictures. Maybe I might write a blog on this someday, but this is part of the reason why I do the work that I do, because there's so much information out there in, alternative medicine, functional medicine, and unfortunately people's individuality is not taken into consideration in some cases, and we can have adverse reactions to stuff. And I, as a pharmacist, safety has been one of my biggest concerns, and that's why I try to, I vet everything that I talk about, and a lot of things I've tried myself, majority of things I've tried myself, or I've tried on somebody else, usually a family member or a client that's a guinea pig that has really good results. And I only share the information that has really good results. Linda, how can I get self-testing if New York does not permit labs to send results to New York residents? So there's something interesting about New York where some of the labs have chosen not to pay specific New York fees to get accredited with them. Apparently they're very high. So what some people have done is they will have the test kit mailed to a relative in New Jersey or somewhere, in a surrounding state, and then they'll mail it back from New Jersey back to the lab, and that seems to get around the issue. Krista, what can you do about nodules? So, and Georgia had the same question. This is really something that I'm excited about because I didn't realize this at first, but everything that I recommend in the program is actually going to be helpful for getting rid of nodules and shrinking them. I do have a section on nodules. Long story short, you can do nutrition, looking at estrogen dominance, as well as looking at chronic infections and toxins is going to be really helpful. We've seen really good results with the autoimmune paleo diet and turmeric for nodules. I have one story that one of these days when I have some time to do more writing, I'm going to be writing about how I'm really excited to have a series of 4 different ultrasounds over the course of a few years of addressing nutrient deficiencies, of getting a person on a clean diet and then getting them to get rid of their infections. And that produced basically nodules were growing, and then they started making changes, and then the nodules stopped growing, started shrinking, and eventually went away. So that is something I'm excited about. Let's see, more questions. Raul, have had Hashimoto's for 2 years and functional doctor does not recommend thyroid medicine. Is this okay? Still looking for triggers as antibiotics cut TPOs by half. That's fantastic that you were able to cut some of those triggers in half, and definitely the course is the right place for you because we have additional triggers in there for you. As far as if medications are right for you or not, I do cover this in the course to figure out where you are on your journey. We, basically when your TSH is between 3 to 10, that may be a place where you may be helped by medications. Definitely when your TSH is above 10, you should be on medications. And there's some school of thought that believes that a TSH, that any elevation in thyroid antibodies should require thyroid hormones. I do talk about that a bit more in the course to help you determine if you should need medications. And one of the things to look at is your symptoms. If you had a food sensitivity test and you're okay with corn, are you still supposed to stay away from corn even though you're not sensitive to it? So it depends on the food sensitivity test. There's some tests that I wouldn't listen to at all. There's other tests that I would swear by. And, really one of the best tests is figuring out in your own body. So staying off of the corn for 3 weeks and then reintroducing it to see if it's affecting you. Okay, let's see. Questions. Andrea, can chronic strep and UTIs be a root cause? Potentially. So strep can cause some potential cross-reactivity with different autoimmune organs, and so can urinary tract infections. So strep has been connected to specific cardiac autoimmune disease, and UTIs have been like the bacteria that causes UTIs. One of them has been specifically related to rheumatoid arthritis. There aren't any studies necessarily connecting them to Hashimoto's, but I have seen cases of Hashimoto's with UTIs and strep. When those things were addressed, we saw improvement. Do you recommend something besides Synthroid? I do. For a lot of people, there's different medication options. I do cover them through the course. There's natural desiccated thyroid hormones that contain T4 and T3, which are two specific thyroid hormones. Synthroid has T4. T3 is the more active one, and many of us do not convert the T4 into the active T3. And people that switch over to the combination products that have both T4 and T3 oftentimes will see that their symptoms just get better. So their hair starts growing back and they have more energy and, they feel like themselves again. Their brain fog goes away. They lose weight without, doing anything differently. Okay. Concentrated tart cherry juice for joint pain. So, I have a lot of strategies and I have symptom solutions specific for joint pain within the course that can be very helpful. I think tart cherry juice, it definitely is not going to be hurtful for most people, and I would definitely try it, but I don't know that it's going to give you the miracle that you hope for. I haven't seen that to be the case. What we have seen is getting rid of specific food sensitivities like grains and nightshades, and then doing systemic enzymes. And I have some more strategies like that in the course. Peter, is there a relationship between Hashimoto's and type 1 diabetes? Yes, the two conditions do tend to go hand in hand. Oh, Blanca, can breast implants produce Hashimoto's? I have old implants encapsulated. Can this be the root? Absolutely. We've actually, I started saying this a few years ago with my private clients. where I would look at their health timelines and I would say, wow, you know, you were doing really well and you were healthy and you were doing great. And then you got breast implants and then you got really sick. And I never used to ask about breast implants. I just never put the two together. But we've actually had a couple of those people who removed their breast implants and they got into remission. I do have, like I said, one of these days I'm going to get back to writing more, and I do have a case study that I want to share with you guys. So I do cover that in the program as well. So, you know, one of the advantages of the program is that it is really, really practical and it's really, really current. So a lot of the stuff that's in the program is not yet on my blog and in my books necessarily. A specific root causes and specific triggers, you know, I go into them, and specific solutions, I go into them in greater detail in the program versus, you know, in the book, I haven't been able to go into as great of detail because of the word count limit, and I haven't been able to blog about them at this point. Can my chronic headaches be caused by my thyroid? Potentially, that can be related. Another thing to look at would be magnesium deficiency, and we have a symptom solution for headaches. So we see really good results with headaches as well for people. Sheila, ordered your books and transcripts back in March, have been on AIP since then as well. Lost 25 pounds and doing so much better. Yay, Sheila. Seeing a holistic doctor now and still making progress. Thank you. Sheila, I'm so glad to hear that. Heat. Vitamin D level is 28, tested last month. Is this too low? Yes. We generally like to see it between 60 and 80. That's where most of my ladies and gentlemen have their vitamin D levels when they are in remission. Michelle, I have a family member in Denver. She has been diagnosed with 5 different autoimmunes, including Hashimoto's. Been trying to get her to follow your protocol. Do you see new patients? I can fly from Arizona, bring her to you. Your info has helped me already in the last few months. You know, Michelle, I'm sorry to hear about your family member. I think, you know, definitely getting her the book and the protocols would be really helpful, as well as the course. At this time, I don't have a clinic set up, so I think she would want to work with somebody who has a clinic that can help her with the 5 different conditions in, you know, like what I would love for her to have. And one of the things I want to do at some point is to have a place where people can get all kinds of different treatments for autoimmune disease, like, you know, getting maybe stem cell therapy or some of these advanced therapies for people with the advanced autoimmune. Nodules. So we talked about nodules. Charlene, can somebody benefit from if they have PCOS? Yes, absolutely. So PCOS, a lot of the protocols are going to be very, very applicable to you. The liver support, the adrenal protocol, the blood sugar balancing, the diet, all of that. You're going to see an improvement or elimination of PCOS. We have an early course participant, I believe I actually shared her story. She had PCOS, and she was able to reverse that. How do I stop the carb cravings? One of the things that can actually help is doing some L-glutamine, and that's going to be putting that in a liquid. And we cover L-glutamine throughout the course as well. And so just taking a little bit of that, maybe 1 to 5 grams a few times a day, and starting low and going slow. Krista, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. You are the light in a very unhelpful medical community in my area. It's my pleasure, Krista. This is my life's work. It's a joy. Thank you so much. This has been a very enlightening seminar. Thanks so much for saying that, Russ. I really appreciate it. Heat, what is causing these blasted hives? Well, actually a parasite known as Blastocystis hominis can cause hives. So I cover that in the book, and I cover that in the course on how to get rid of it. The protocols I used to have hives. They were not fun. And I had this parasite, and quite a few people do. with Hashimoto's. Actually, about 25% of the people I've tested have this parasite, and whenever we address it, we see the hives go away completely, irritable bowel syndrome goes away completely, thyroid antibodies also will reduce significantly. And if that's your only root cause, you can go into remission. If you have additional root causes, you'll see an improvement, and food sensitivities tend to go away too. So we have a way for you to test for that throughout the course, as well as protocols. Okay. I'll take a drink of my sip of my green juice. Sergio says, thanks. Have you thought about translating your books to your website or your courses to Spanish? I know for sure you'll help thousands. I have Hashimoto's and alopecia. I'm so sorry that you've lost your job. Maybe I can help. So I've got great news. The Hashimoto's protocol and Hashimoto's root cause is going to be coming out in Spanish in the fall. So if you guys are on my email list, we're going to be sending out some announcements about that. Both of the books have been picked up in multiple countries. So thank you guys for, for helping me raise the awareness, because you are saying that you're not being heard, and you're saying that this information is helpful and this information is important. With every review that you guys post on Hashimoto's protocol, Hashimoto's the root cause, publishers from around the world see it, and then they reach out to me, and then they, when they see there's an interest and there's a trending topic in their opinion, then they want to translate it. There's a new version coming out of Hashimoto's protocol. The Polish version, not new version, the Polish version of Hashimoto's protocol is coming out in about a week or so. I think the September 13th. Haven't got my copy yet, but that's the next foreign translation that's coming out. And we have China, we have Spain, Portugal, that have also come on board, and excited to get the word out there. Blanca says, thank you, Izabella. It's a long way, and you're the only one that really helped in this area. Thank you. I appreciate that. Will any of the blood gut tests you recommend still be viable if I have them shipped to a family member in the US and they ship them in the UK? Yeah, so the gut tests will be. And we actually have some companies that you can order through the UK. So we have a international resource database where a lot of the things luckily are available in the UK that we have available here. I'd love to order my own labs, but tried it, and the CT lab said they could not do labs for New York residents. Are there states that don't allow it? So I mentioned people have gone around that by going to relatives in a neighboring state. Trish, would your program be useful for another person with autoimmune diseases like Graves' Sjogren's? It would be very helpful, very useful for that. We have seen people improve with other types of autoimmune conditions. There may be some specific things that would not be, like for Graves' disease, I talk about optimizing thyroid hormones, but I don't necessarily talk about suppressing them. And so there may be some things that you may need to get deeper information, specifically for Graves. You would want to make sure that you are using medications or other types of herbs to get your thyroid numbers optimal, but everything else would apply. A root canal can be a trigger. Yes, the root canal can be a trigger. Is it okay to take ashwagandha if you have Hashimoto's? Yes, unless you're nightshade sensitive. I've developed very new food sensitivities. How can I expect them to go away? So generally, that means you have something going on living in your gut that's creating these new food sensitivities. So unwelcome visitor, unwelcome guest, and you want to get rid of that unwelcome guest and restore your gut flora. And we see anywhere from 3 months to 2 years for food sensitivities to go away. Julie, so grateful for your work. Been searching for things to help me for the past 15 years. I've stumbled across many of the dietary adjustments myself, but I'm excited for the possibility of healing my diet Non-responder self, thank you. There is hope. I'm so glad that you're here. I know I was stuck in that boat for a while too, where I was like, wait a minute, I'm eating so clean and I'm so skinny. What's going on? I look like a little skeleton. And there is hope and there's a way back. When you say no sugar, does that mean no honey? Melinda, so sometimes for people, they do need to go on a diet that even excludes honey, specifically if they have candida. But generally, I recommend no sugar, and there may be opportunities to use other sweeteners that are not so processed. Would you recommend taking N-acetylcysteine because of its side effects, especially if one has asthma? So N-acetylcysteine can be very helpful for people. It can be helpful for asthma, for Hashimoto's. The only challenge is if you had sulfur issues, because it's a sulfur-based product, then you would not want to take it. Let's see. Karen, you mentioned that weight retention can be an indicator of toxicity. What might be lingering skin issues when on AIP for months? Toxicity. So one of the ways that the body gets rid of toxins is through the skin. So that might be, I would recommend the liver protocol. Melody says, thank you. I believe Kaiser Insurance will not pay for tests. I enjoy and was helped by your books. I eat well, but I'm still not as energetic or clear-headed as before. I was heavier, but I'm normal weight. Is there only money? Would heavy metals be the way to go? So let's see. I would have to know a little bit more about your situation, and the program helps you assess that. So it helps you go through an assessment of what your individual symptoms are and your potential triggers that you might have had, and it helps you prioritize what you should do in terms of testing. Generally, for most people, I recommend spending money on gut testing because that seems to be an issue for just about everybody. Does swollen tongue something people get with Hashimoto's? Potentially that could be a symptom of Hashimoto's, and it could also be caused by having a jaw that didn't grow big enough for your tongue. And that can be from a result of having a processed diet and potentially some genetic issues as well. And in that case, basically, you wouldn't necessarily be able to shrink the tongue. What is the green juice that you just drank? So this is cilantro, green apples, celery, carrot, and lime. And this is one of my favorite drinks, and this is part of the liver support protocol as well. So it's really, really tasty and great at detoxifying, and sometimes it gives you a little bit of a green mustache too. Are you going to publish a revised version of your first book? I just updated that a little while ago within the last year, so potentially, if you have any ideas for me on what I should add in there. Kamla, good night. It's 3:30 a.m. Christina, I have lightheaded and blurry vision, brain fog, even though I've been doing gluten-free, dairy-free for a year. Losing hair. I get hyper symptoms if I increase my natriuretic. Is it my adrenals? It could be potentially adrenals. Being lightheaded can be correlated with adrenals. Thank you for all the information. I'm only into my gluten, dairy, soy-free diet for a month and only on natural thyroid meds for a week. You've given me hope that I will get better as I continue on my journey. So glad to hear that, Elizabeth. Hope that you meet your health goals and you feel amazing. How much selenium per day? 200 to 400 micrograms of selenium methionine. Angelo, how to stop the carb cravings? I think I already answered that one, but I'm seeing you asking that a couple of times. So you could take L-glutamine a few times a day, and you could do that as a supplement or as a powder. I would start with anywhere from 1 gram to 5 grams per day, and you can increase that. We talk more about the dosing in the program. And I have it in Hashimoto's protocol too. How does periodontal disease affect one's thyroid? So there is a connection between periodontitis and Hashimoto's. I do cover that in the dental triggers module. There is a school of thought that believes there's some infections within the gums that can contribute to thyroid disease. My dentist makes a DNA, maybe an insert to expand the mouth for the tongue that is too big for mouth. Yes, so that's what we would have to do is if we have a tongue that's too big for our mouth, it would have to be having a dental device of some sort that expands our teeth and creates more space. Victoria, how soon would you see results from going gluten or dairy free? So my results were within 3 days. My irritable bowel syndrome and acid reflux went away, which was amazing. I would give it 3 months to see the full effect. Bread people, constipation is a common hypothyroid symptom. What might be causing frequent diarrhea? So I had that, unfortunately. This could be because of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, food sensitivities, or parasites or other kinds of infections. The course does address all of these. To be on your program, do you need to retest or can you send in results from current tests? So if you have current tests, the course goes through on how to interpret them. You may also learn about some additional tests that you may need to do. Catherine, I have difficulty swallowing magnesium citrate. Can I open the capsule and take the contents? Yeah, we actually recommend that for children sometimes, not specifically with magnesium citrate, but with other types of supplements, is that people open up the capsules and then they sprinkle them in something like applesauce. Can you direct to research supporting two identical hormones versus their downsides? I've asked doctors and they're still thinking not a good idea. Same dangers. I would look at the Estrogen Fix. This is a book that Dr. Mesh Seibel is coming out with, and he has some information about there on how to properly use hormones. And he talks about a specific estrogen window that people have that makes using hormones safer within a certain time frame. What can I do to do your liver protocol? Would love to stay vegetarian. What can I use to replace the meat protein while doing it? So you can try pea protein, and you can try beans as a source of protein, or beans or legumes. I think that would be a good source. And even during the liver support, you could still do nuts and seeds, even though you may need to eliminate those later on. And when that's one of the challenges people have with the vegetarian diet, is because we tend to have a lot of sensitivities to proteins, and a lot of the non-animal proteins are going to be a bit harder to tolerate than some of the animal proteins for us. So a lot of times we're left with very few things to eat when we're vegetarian. That said, hemp protein, lentils, these are all things you can try doing on the liver protocol. What are the remission levels for TSH, TPO, and TGAB? So the ideal goal for TSH would be 0.5 to 2. TPO and TGAB, I consider under 100 to be remission. And honestly, if you had thyroid antibodies in the 5,000 range and now they're in the 300 range or something, I would still consider that remission, because remission just means that your disease, your condition is not as aggressive as it was. So anytime you can get it less aggressive, that could be considered a remission. If Maura said the swollen tongue just happened. So if that is something that happened, that could be related to the thyroid. Sergio, is it normal to have Hashimoto's and not be able to gain weight? For some people it is. So I went through this problem where I was just wasting away and I got very, very thin. And I do have information about how to lose weight. So we have specific symptom solution for losing weight, and I have a specific symptom solution for gaining weight, because that is an issue for many people. And some of the things to consider are going to be the state of your adrenals. If your cortisol is too low, that could be a problem. as well as having infections in the gut. These are the two biggest things that I would consider. And of course, if you're not eating enough calories because you're on a restricted diet and you tend to fill up, that would be another thing to consider. But you can absolutely normalize your weight, and being underweight is very much a sign of something wrong, just as being overweight is. Okay. Let's see here. I think I got through most of the questions that that I can answer. There are some questions that are a bit too specific to people's health conditions that I'm unable to answer. I will say that the program can help you individualize things for yourself. So I give you various quizzes that you can do and assessments to figure out where you are. So these are assessments taken from medical books and different types of studies that will teach you how to properly understand what's going on within your body and how you should proceed. And if you wanted to get more information on the course, there is a button that you should be able to click somewhere on this page that will take you to an overview of the course and how it's set up. I really hope that this information was very helpful to you, and I really wish you all the best on your healing journey. And I'll be excited if you join me for the course. I do know that it is something that has helped a lot of people already. And if you're ready to take the next step, I would love to have you be a part of it. So thanks again for being here. And thank you for all of your wonderful questions and for really showing up for yourself and being here for yourself and taking charge of your health. You guys are making me very, very proud. And thank you for being here, for allowing me to do what I love to do. And that is to guide people on how to take back their health. And I really hope that this information will help you on your journey. Keep your head up, stay in there. You can do this, okay? And with that, I hope you have a wonderful evening. I'm gonna get some shut-eye down now. It's getting close to 9 p.m. here. And I've got an early morning tomorrow. So thank you all for staying in. And it was wonderful to chat with you guys through chat here. I wasn't able to see your beautiful faces, but I felt your energy and felt your questions and felt your gratitude. So thank you for being here. And I hope this information is super helpful. Wishing you the best on your healing journeys.